be a tale that's just begun. Together we roar, together we grow. Detroit Lions will rise, with our hearts full of dreams and the fire in our eyes. From the past to the future, we'll claim our own. In the home of the brave, we'll proudly have grown. So let's lift our voices, let's turn it up loud. For the love of the Lions, we'll always be proud.
All right, good morning. Welcome to the Rise and Grind Morning Show. It is February 17th. It's Monday morning, and we had the Monday issues, of course. Sorry about that. We had to fix a lot of audio issues, but we're in. I think we're all good, but I would love to know in the chat if you guys can hear and see everybody okay this morning. If you have any issues, just let us know. We'll try to fix it on the fly. So Detroit Lions news and rumors today. Of course, NFL news and rumors. Hey, look, the season's off and running. We did our first mock draft last night. I couldn't believe I was on for 2.5 hours, but mock draft 1.0 is in the books. Now, take it lightly, right? No trades allowed in mock draft 1.0. And if you're putting trades in it, I don't even know if you can consider that a 1.0. I'm a little bit late this year on my mock, but I think we did pretty good. We'll see how it goes. But more importantly, this morning, we're going to get to the best week one matchup for 2025, which I think that everyone is already ready for. Like, we're ready to run it back. We're going to get into some Chiefs news, what's going on with Kelce and possible retirement. We've got some sad news that we're going to get into on the third topic. And then for the Detroit Lions, talking about Aiden Hutchinson and some big moves or not so big moves that might be happening right now for the Lions that will come to light over the next couple of weeks. So we're going to do all that when we get back with the guys here in just about 30 seconds.
Every day, thousands of people are discovering YOOPERLITES, Michigan's newest, funnest rock to go find on the shores of the Great Lakes. Don't go out with just any light. Try the Convoy C8 from YOOPERLITES.com. It's guaranteed for life, and you'll find all the ones everyone else misses. Quality UV lights that are perfect for YOOPERLITES with prices starting as low as $20. Please make sure to visit YOOPERLITES.com for all your UV flashlight needs with the best guarantees on the market. Just what you wanted and not what you didn't. The best quality, the best guarantees, and the best UV flashlights from YOOPERLITES.com.
All right, we're back. My audio should be fixed. Should be a little bit louder now. Hopefully it sticks. Should stick.
It just dipped.
What's that, buddy?
It just dipped.
Mine dipped. Oh.
Yep. As soon as you started talking, it dipped down.
All right, let me go back in and try to fix it again.
Both times.
Yeah, auto gain control somehow keeps slipping on. Here we go. One more time. One more go. Should be good to go. All right, here we go. And it looks like it's staying. So good morning, gentlemen. How's it going this morning? Eric, we'll start with you. Then we'll go down to Riley.
I'm fantastic. Even though it's -9 and I put that gremlin way over on the other side of the studio, I can't even reach him.
Throw his ass out in the snow.
He's still getting into stuff. He's chewing on wires or something.
We were supposed to exercise him this summer. We didn't get a chance. I never made it up to Brimley, but just throw him out in the snow and just leave him there.
We're going to take him out to Lake Superior and give him a Viking funeral.
Yeah, give him the proper skull send-off, huh?
Yeah.
All
It's
right.
the only way we can do it.
So, good morning, Riley. It's super early out there. He's a Utahian, which is a new word for me. What's happening?
I'm back. I'm ready to go, and I'm just hoping. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We're ready to roll. Man, I had a great weekend. I got to give a shout out real quick to my guy, Michael. I text Will right as this happened. I told Eric about it this morning, but he was in town. He's from Michigan. He was at the RV show here this weekend. And I see he puts on his Lions jacket, and I said, "Oh man, you're a Lions fan?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm a big Lions fan, season ticket holder. You know, goes to Ford Field has been for years." I said, "Man, you should check out the show. It's called Rocked On Detroit Lions." And I pulled it up. He's kind of like, "I thought you looked familiar." He's like, "I watched that show." So I'm like, "Nah, you know, I'm a infrequent, but I think I'm becoming a more a frequent guest. But it was awesome, man. He immediately recognized the show. He's like, "That's Will." I said, "Yeah, yeah." I'm gonna text Will right now and said it. So anyway, it was a shout out to Michael. It was really cool, and hopefully he's watching this morning.
From Detroit to Utah, man, we're covering some ground. That's some miles. That's a cool experience. Hopefully you guys had a good weekend slinging some RVs. Motown Mitch, thank you for the heads up on the audio this morning, and a big shout out to. Hold on here, something just rolled in. Where'd it go? That's not letting me see the name. Hold on. I'm pretty sure it's Adam G. Adam G. just sent in a $20 Cash App donation. Big thanks to you, Adam. Always been supporting the channel, and we really appreciate it. So let's kick it off. How quickly do you guys want week 1 to be here? I mean, that's the first question I'm going to ask to everybody. Like, are you ready just to run it back, or do you think you need a little bit of time off to kind of just settle down and I guess recharge your own batteries? Eric, are you ready for week 1 already, or what's the answer?
It depends on which week 1 you're talking about. I'm ready for the week 1 of the UFL. I wish they'd kick it off this weekend instead of March 20th. Come on, guys. Do it the week at. Just give us 1 week off and then right back to football. None of this taking a break crap. I know why they do it, because they don't want to get into inclement weather in the beginning of March. They want to get past the crappy weather because some of the teams play outside. But I just think they're missing an opportunity by not starting the week after the Super Bowl, or, giving it 1 week and then getting right into the UFL. So I'm ready to get right back into football. I don't care what kind it is. I really like the UFL. So I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm talking NFL week 1. So NFL week 1, are you ready to rock and roll with NFL week 1, or do you need some time?
No, I'm ready to rock and roll. The NFL's 365 days a year, so it never stops.
That is true. That is a very true statement. What about you, Riley?
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys. Yeah, I would love if, with the Lions were playing this coming Sunday, but I think you have to just appreciate the journey. And for me, that was, last night I was at a dinner. We had a dinner with everybody before a bunch of people went back to Michigan. And then I'm texting with Will, and he's like, "Man, I'm about to go live." And it's those things that when I interviewed Will back months ago for Talking Football, it was the same thing. I said, "Will, the work that you do, your channel, it's the connective tissue, right? It's this process. It's talking about these prospects. It's talking about potential moves." And I feel like this is the best Detroit Lions channel out there. And so this is the place to be. This is where you're going to get the best insight, I feel. And so I would love if we were playing Sunday, but I'm also happy to be here doing this. And thank God we have this channel and this show and this community to bridge the gap between now and September.
Well, you mentioned the term, man. It's bridging the gap between the team and the fan, right? And we wouldn't be doing it without the community that's behind us. We have an amazing community of Lions super fans, Lions season ticket holders. I mean, in my opinion, everyone's a super fan when you're a fan of a team. I mean, how do you rate somebody's fandom, right? I mean, I think everyone celebrates their team a little bit differently. We all do it our own way. I mean, I think that's what makes us all unique. But talking about the community, I mean, I can't thank Trace enough for all the work that she's done. Mike P, I mean, these two show up each and every single day as moderators. I mean, the days that they're not here is so few and far between. They do an excellent job. You name just about anybody in this chat right now, and these are the people that are with us every single day. Rain, snow, shine, doesn't matter. Brandy Coffee, J-Rod, Jay Cruzen, Peter Van Larhoven, Full Slate Farms, Jay Cruzen again, Jay-Z, Adam Gakowski, and again, appreciate your donation this morning. Steve Pinnikin, probably butchered your name. Motown Mitch. Who else is in here this morning? We got Kevin Barr in the house. Roxanne Rittman. Maureen. That's Maureen. I'm terrible with my R's and my E's and my N's together. And there's a whole bunch of other names that I'm not going to be able to get to. Of course, we got Eric. I mean, Eric has been on this channel now for over a year.
Almost a year now.
Or almost a year. So yeah. I can't remember the first show, but we're going to have to figure out when the anniversary date is.
It was the weekend or the Monday after the combine last year. So it might have been
So
like,
yeah, it's coming up in just a few weeks.
yeah.
Yeah.
We got to
So-
do something special that day.
Well, he's seen the journey, right? I think I was at 2,500 subscribers back then, maybe 1,800, somewhere in that range. So it's been a journey. We're trying to get to 10K. So if you guys have not, if you have not subscribed, please do us the honor, subscribe, get in, join the ride. Once we get to 10K, then I'm good. That just helps us get into fundraiser mode on YouTube. So not that I won't accept, subscribers, not that we don't want anybody in, but it's, that's like the only place that I need to be. And that's going to help out Rockhound Cancer Foundation that much further. So let's get into some news. Week one, the opponent might not be the Eagles for the Lions, right? So as the tradition has become, most expect that the 2025 NFL season will begin, right, on a Thursday night football matchup. And it could be the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Lions. It could be the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Commanders. I mean, it could be the Chiefs for all we know. They could run it back. But getting the first crack at a defending Super Bowl champion, I mean, I think that's the attractive part of playing in week one. And the Lions had the benefit of doing that 2 seasons ago, where we opened up on Thursday night in Kansas City, and we took them down. I think it was 21-20. Damn good game. I'm surprised the refs let us win that game, but we did, and we barely won the game. So is it going to be the Commanders matchup against the Eagles that could be too good for television? Honestly, I think any team that is going up against the Eagles in week one is going to be, all eyes on me. You know what I mean? Just big shout out to Tupac. So if the Commanders and the Lions, though, were to face off, this time in the Northwest Stadium in Landover, Maryland, then the league would get a divisional round matchup or rematch on the books for week one while keeping the opening game open for another decision, most likely Eagles and Chiefs. So I don't think the Lions are going to open up on Thursday, but I could see where the Commanders and the Lions get a chance to run it back. And, of course, Amon-Ra St. Brown recently said on his podcast and made his case that he wants the Eagles. And I'm not surprised that he wants the best of the best. So his quote was this, and it was pretty simple. He says, the Eagles have the home opener next year because they won the Super Bowl. Can I read you the list of teams that could potentially be in that first game? Commanders, Cowboys, Giants, Bears, Lions, Raiders, Rams, Broncos. Out of all of those teams, if you are the NFL, who are you putting in there and why? I added the and why, but who are you putting in there? And quote, he wants the Eagles. Eric, do you want the Eagles week one? Are you up for the challenge?
Yes, 1,000,000%. We'll have a healthy defense. Let's see what we could have done. Let's see what would have been had we been healthy in the playoffs.
I agree 1,000%. And I'm sick of hearing this fraud status, right? There's a lot of Vikings channels, not the cool ones that we work with, but some of the other ones that I don't know very well that have been calling out the Lions and saying that we're frauds because we exited, week 2 really of the playoffs, not week 1. Get it right. It was week 2, the divisional round. We got to skip week 1 because we won, we had the 1 seed. But calling us frauds and saying that we exited the playoffs in fitting fashion to our season, I'm like, Our season was incredible. I mean, in the way that we won football games without a defense, tell me another team that's been able to do that. If anything, I think that just put another check mark, in the boxes for Dan and Brad about who these individuals are on this team. And the depth pieces that he's brought in, and I'm hearing all the people crying about players like Broderick Martin and so on and so forth, right? But without the guys that we've had on this team, we wouldn't have been able to do what we did this season. So the depth is important to me. And I'm just sick of hearing the word frauds when nobody else has been able to do what we did. Yep, we didn't show up to the game. Everybody stayed in their hotel room that day, apparently. So, Riley, week 1, Eagles, or do you have somebody else on your mind?
Yeah, I'd be ecstatic if the Lions get that game. I will just say, as far as the fraud things, don't call a team a fraud that beat you twice. No matter how their season ended, just have some self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
And then I did read something as it pertains to the Lions and Eagles. I could see the Bears being that opponent because they may want to save the Lions, Eagles for some other time during the season. I do think the Bears will have the draw with Ben Johnson as new coach, Caleb Williams as the quarterback. They're going to want to see right off the bat how they look. I would love it if it's the Lions, but I won't be surprised if it's not.
That is an interesting take, and here's why. I did not expect that answer, by the way. So the Lions kind of got that same opportunity, right? We were the comeback kids of 2022, finishing, what was it, a 10-2 run? 8-2 run.
Yeah,
and so then they give us the first crack at the Super Bowl champion to start the next season on Thursday night. So same thing for Caleb Williams and the Bears, new coach, not so new quarterback. He'll be in his second season, maybe trying to see who they are. Did Ben Johnson do a good job? Did Ryan Poles do a good job is really going to be the question. So that's an interesting answer. Eric, I think we read you loud and clear. You want to see the Lions taking on the Eagles. Again, I think the Lions are going to take on the Commanders. I think that's the way it's going to be. I think it's going to be the Commanders, and then that gets that game out of the way. And quite honestly, I would rather play one of the best teams in the league week one, no matter what it is. And we've got a lot of really good teams on this schedule. But whether it's the Eagles, whether it's the Commanders, or any of the other playoff teams, I want one of them week one. That is our new team, our new coaching staff, our new offense, our new defense up against a team that is not going to expect anything. They're not going to have any tape on us whatsoever. So I think that is a good way for us to start the season. And question, obviously, to you guys in the chat, of course, to all the people that will be watching and listening later, who do you want week one? Next up with NFL news, Riley, what do you have?
Yeah, reports are if Travis Kelce wants to continue playing, that the Kansas City Chiefs have basically told him, obviously, you're welcome back, but it sounds like they would want him to be back in an adjusted role. I read an article from Jamie Gordon, says Travis Kelce is one of the few tight ends to lead his team in targets most seasons, and many of the throws Patrick Mahomes sends his way are into tight windows across the middle of the field, prime location for a brutal hit. According to this article, or The Athletic's Nate Taylor, the Chiefs want Kelce back, but do not want their offense to run through the 12-year pro who turns 36 in October. And it kind of makes sense, right? No matter what happens with Travis Kelce from here on, his place is cemented. He's a Hall of Fame player. He can choose at this point, obviously, if he wants to continue playing. But it does make sense to me that the Chiefs, wouldn't want to continue to build the offense through him, right? Start to develop this new phase of the offense that doesn't necessarily have everything going through Travis Kelce. So as I was reading that, I thought I'm going to bring this up on the show and ask you guys kind of what your thoughts are. Do you think that Kelce continues to play? Do you think that losing the Super Bowl influences that decision? Maybe it would have been easier for him to go out if they had won. But one, do you think he's going to continue playing? And two, do you think that losing the Super Bowl will play into that decision?
Eric, go ahead.
Well, I think that had they won, it would have been let's ask, his girlfriend to marry him and ride off into the sunset. I think that was definitely his plan. There was a play where Patrick Mahomes dropped back, got pressured. He's running all over the place, and Kelce just stands there and throws his arms up like, what the hell? Why didn't you throw the ball to me? And then Patrick Mahomes runs past him, and he doesn't set a block, doesn't do anything. He just stands there. And to me, he just gave up. He gave up on his team. He gave up on his quarterback, gave up on all of it just because things weren't going his way. And from all reports that I see, yesterday he was saying that he wants to come back. So I saw a few things on X that he wanted to come back for one more season.
That's interesting. I kind of envisioned Kelce won't play for another team. Let's just put it that way. He's going to retire a Chief. I think that is an absolute. But it's interesting to see that he might want to come back. I mean, he's 36 years old. I think the game kind of left him after that Super Bowl. He didn't look the same. Obviously, the entire team didn't look right. They were well overmatched. They were not ready for that game. It was very similar to what happened for the Lions. But then it kind of makes you wonder, and I heard this over the weekend, and I was going to make it a topic, but who was it that even came out and said this? Now I don't even remember which NFL player came out and said it, that clearly the script for 2024 season was rewritten in the final week leading up to the Super Bowl. That they were not going to allow the Chiefs to three-peat because of all of the backlash that was happening. Everyone was raising the alarm. I mean, obviously they're in fear that, if people really do start to boycott the NFL over this stuff, that they could lose billions, not millions, but billions of dollars. And quickly. The three-peat did one thing for the NFL. They gave them the largest viewership in a Super Bowl ever. They were selling 30-second ads at $8 million a clip. So to think that this game doesn't matter to them and who's in it, I will tell you right now, if the Lions were in the Super Bowl, that 126 would have been smashed. There's no way in hell that the Lions aren't going to smash that record when they make the Super Bowl in 2025. But as far as Kelce goes, look, I don't see him playing this year. And if he does play, I have a hard time imagining that he's really going to want to take second fiddle or third, right? I do believe that they want to build their team around Xavier Worthy. The kid's absolute dynamic. And, I mean, he showed it, in a little bit of time that they were able to put in on the offense. He snagged like 2 touchdowns in that game, I think, 158 yards or something like that. Pretty good game. They want their team to be built the way that it should be, not just one player. They've demanded or they've commanded other defenses with one guy, Kelce and Mahomes. That's it, just one guy. I don't know how they've gotten away with it for this long. So it makes sense. Let's put somebody else in the driver's seat other than Kelce. NFL. What was that?
Somebody's.
Yep. NFL news next. Let's see. Eric, you're up.
All right. So for the second year in a row, gun violence happens during the Super Bowl celebration. This is not a fun story. This is not a rah-rah story. This is a shame on everyone story that is involved in any of this. So last year, if you remember, on February 14th, 2024, 33 people were wounded in a mass shooting at the west side of Union Station in Kansas City, Missouri. 1 person was killed and 22 others were wounded by gunshots, including 11 children. The shooting followed a Super Bowl 58 victory parade for the Kansas City Chiefs. Once again, tragedy has happened again with gun violence at the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl parade this last Friday. So the joy surrounding the Eagles Super Bowl parade celebration was partially dampened by violence Friday afternoon in Philadelphia. 2 people were shot along Benjamin Franklin Parkway in Philadelphia amongst a crowd eager to celebrate the Eagles championship parade. At around 2:35 p.m., according to police, the victims, both women, according to the police, showed up at the medical tent at 23rd and Spring Garden Streets to get help. The shooting occurred on the 2300 block near the parade at a portable toilet line following a fight involving multiple people, police told the Philadelphia Inquirer. According to Frank Venor, the city's deputy commissioner, the women were shot by a man wearing an Eagles jersey after an argument, all while Eagles players and the other team officials were doing speeches on the steps of the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And there was like almost 1 million people, or over 1 million people, I guess, there for this. Just guns have no place around sporting events. I was at a Lions game this year, and we were walking back to Eastern Market to where my vehicle was. And I was over at lot 2, but over at lot 6, someone got in a fight over a parking spot. And a gentleman tried to get between the 2 people to stop the argument, stop the fight, and he got shot and killed. And listen, guns have no place at football games, whether you're allowed to carry them or not allowed to carry them. People just need to stop bringing guns to these sporting events. It's sad and tragic to hear that once again, 2 years in a row at a Super Bowl parade, somebody gets shot.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely tragic. I've let people know I'm a concealed carrier, right? I don't always bring something with me when I feel like I need it most, and that's because I guess I got to trust on the fact that I can defend myself. If you really think that you need a gun, maybe, you know, at a football game, maybe you shouldn't be there, right? Maybe it's too big for you. If you're too anxious about a crowd, it's probably time to not go to the game. Enjoy it from your couch. But stuff like this shouldn't happen. And this is probably the fourth time now that we've had to talk about this in the last 2 seasons of this show, both times after the Super Bowl, a couple of times during this last season. Matter of fact, there was a couple of times during the previous season. So not all of them surrounding football games, but even high school games, you know, where we've seen this. And I won't ever forget, you know, Megan and I were in the vehicle after the shooting there in Detroit, wondering why all these cop cars and ambulances are flying around me. Had I known literally one street over is where it happened, I just walked past there. And to think that I could have been somewhere around that, you know, Megan could have got hit or something, like it opens up your eyes. And what a damper it was, you know, on that game. And I mean, it was a tough game as it was. And then to end your night that way, yeah, it doesn't belong. You know, violence doesn't really belong anywhere. This isn't the same, you know, like when I grew up in the, you know, 80s and 90s, you know, it was meet me out by the dumpster. It was meet me behind the, you know, meet me at this locker, you know, meet me in this bathroom. And there was no weapons, right? A book bag was probably the most you had to fear. Not today. Even kids in high school, you know, getting a hold of guns and stuff. It has no place. Nowhere. I don't care where it is. Schools, football games, doesn't matter what event it is. We've got to be better. We've got to figure out a way to make it better. But that doesn't mean that, you know, I would want people to relinquish their right to protect themselves, because where is the individual that was there, that was properly carrying, that could have helped the situation, right? That's the other argument, the other side to that. I think the real argument here is people that are not responsible, that shouldn't be, you know, carried in the first place, have no place being there. So heart goes out to the family and the lives that were lost. Obviously, tough situation, man. Very, very, very tough situation. Hate hearing about it. Yep, really do. So next up, let's do this. Let's get into off-season needs. I think that every team has a lot of needs. Try to point some of them out last night in the mock draft. Riley, you were in for a little bit. Eric, I don't know if you were able to join last night. It was kind of late. I know it's past your bedtime, but
I stayed in until you got to the Saints, and then I fell asleep.
I could not really pay attention to the chat because I had, you know, too much trying to get out as it was, and it was a long mock draft. Did not expect it to take that long, but it did. It always does, because I'm not trying to just say, you know, this player goes here, this player goes there. I'm trying to give you some reasons as to why. So then this article came out by The Athletic. And real quick, before I forget, well, we'll come back to that. Anyway, so NFL staff writer from The Athletic, this came out on February 14th. I did not see this prior to doing my mock draft. So now I'm curious as to what happened, you know, in my mock draft compared to this. But I'm going to try to run down 32 teams here. If you guys have it pulled up, we can flip-flop if you want. Every team's need, according to, it just says NFL staff writer. They didn't even put a name on it. So first up, Arizona Cardinals, edge rusher. Nick Rallis joined the Cardinals 2 years ago as the NFL's youngest coordinator. And since then, he turned into a rising star. It's time to upgrade his defensive talent. And that starts with an edge rusher for the Arizona Cardinals. I should just pull up my downloaded version of last night's mock and just see where I'm comparing here. And there she is. Let's pull it up. Or not, because it doesn't want to pull up.
Hey, while Will's getting that pulled up, I see Trace doing the same excellent work she always does. But just a verbal reminder as well. If you have not hit the like button for us, please do. That helps the show grow. That's how I found the show. the algorithm and the great work that Will and Eric have been doing. And yeah, if you'll hit that like button for us, please, it helps us a bunch.
So while I'm pulling this up, if somebody, do you guys have it open?
Yep.
All right, Eric, if you want to take number 2 real quick, Atlanta.
All right. The Atlanta Falcons, they need pass rush. It's always pass rush in Atlanta, isn't it? The Falcons were 31st in sacks last season with 31 and are last in the league over the last 5 years with 141 sacks, 10 years and 20 years. Holy crap. Matthew Judon was second on the team last year with 5.5 sacks, but he's hitting free agency, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of urgency on either side to keep Judon in Atlanta. The only can't-miss pass rushing prospect in this year's draft, Penn State's Abdul Carter, will be long gone by the time the Falcons draft at 15, so free agency might be the best option.
Okay, so just to recap for Arizona last night, I gave them tackle Will Campbell, and for Atlanta, I gave Atlanta an edge, Nick Scorton. Do you have it up, Riley?
I do, yeah.
All right, hit it off, number 3.
We are, sorry, is it the Falcons?
Baltimore.
Sorry, 1 second. Let me just get back up to there. So the Baltimore Ravens' biggest need is along the offensive line. Ravens could be looking at an offensive line makeover for the second straight offseason. Starting left tackle Ronnie Stanley and starting left guard Patrick McCarry are free agents, as are reserve offensive linemen Josh Jones and Ben Cleveland. Nearly half of the offensive linemen who ended the season on the 53-man roster are not under contract. The Ravens have some young players who can step into bigger roles, but they must add 1, if not 2, starting caliber offensive linemen through the draft or through free agency.
So they're calling an edge rusher to the Bills, but then they say that they need starting offensive line work. Well, that's where I went for the Bills last night. I gave them, well, no, I didn't. I gave them wide receiver Matthew Golden.
Baltimore,
Baltimore, though.
What's that?
Baltimore.
Oh, I'm sorry. Baltimore. Offensive line. Baltimore. Why did I think we were on Buffalo? Baltimore.
Oh.
You're always one step ahead, Will.
Yep, always, I guess. So Baltimore, where did I put them? I gave them tackle Josh Simmons. So I did mock them an offensive lineman. Hey, how's that? I'm 2 out of 3 so far. All right, so Bills, where we're headed to next, they need an edge rusher. Now, the Bills have 2 significant needs that go hand in hand, as both edge rusher and wide receiver deserve ample consideration this offseason. The tie goes to the edge rusher because the quarterback, Josh Allen, proved that he can get the most out of a receiver that even lacks true top options or true top ability. The Bills rely heavily on their front 4 to provide pressure without a blitz. Hint, hint. And outside of Greg Rousseau, they came up woefully short throughout the season and in the playoffs. Look, their defense was boat raced a lot last year, and it was their offense that clearly was winning games for them. I think that they stick with offensive side of the football, especially where they're picking there at the end of the first round. However, I do believe that there is going to be some options available at the end of the first round, even for the Lions. As the Lions, I gave them Landon Jackson last night. But the Buffalo Bills taking an edge rusher, it makes sense. But I gave them Matthew Golden. I don't think that if Matthew Golden slips that far, you can't pass up on him. Carolina?
After becoming the 4th team in NFL history and first since 1980 to allow 3,000 rushing yards, man, they're lucky they didn't play the Lions. The priority has to be fixing a porous run defense. The return of Pro Bowler Derek Brown, who missed the final 16 games following knee surgery, will help. But the Panthers need an upgrade at nose tackle, where Shai Tuttle hasn't been stout enough. One name to watch, Broncos free agent DJ Jones, who has the 4th best run stop rate amongst DL per Pro Football Focus, and has ties to Carolina defensive coordinator
Ejiro Evero.
The safety room needs to be overhauled with guys who can tackle and make plays on the ball.
I would agree. I mean, I think Carolina needs help just about everywhere. Like I said last night, I don't see the Panthers really winning with Bryce, but he's serviceable, and that's why I mocked James Pierce Jr. edge to the Carolina Panthers. Now, coming up at the top of the hour, once we get through this article, is the news on Aiden Hutchinson. So stick around, smash the like button if you haven't already. Trey says there's 60 people that are in the chat that haven't smashed it yet. And if you guys want these ads off, hurry up, jump out, smash the like, jump back in, and then and let us know you did. So Chicago Bears, take it away. You want to go that one, Riley?
Yeah, I got it. The Bears could be looking for 3 new starters in the middle of their offensive line. Guards Tevin Jenkins and Matt Pryor and center Coleman Shelton are all set to be unrestricted free agents. Pryor and Shelton were both reserves who joined the team on 1-year deals before becoming full-time starters. Jenkins, who has struggled to stay healthy, didn't receive an extension as he hoped during last season. The Bears need to improve their pass rush, but quarterback Caleb Williams was sacked 68 times during his rookie season. He needs better help up front.
So I said the same thing last night to a degree, that offensive line would be where I'd probably spend my assets in the beginning. But I have a feeling that Ben Johnson is going to want something on that defensive side of the football where they've been purchasing players, right? They haven't been building players through the draft. And Jack Sawyer at number 10, in my opinion, is the twin to Aiden Hutchinson that you probably just can't turn away. So I think that's where Jack is going to end up as a Chicago Bear, but offensive line makes perfect sense. Absolutely. There's going to be some big time names available at number 10. Cincinnati Bengals defensive line. So the Bengals must fix their defensive line, not once, not twice. They probably shouldn't even stop at 3. They need many swings between the draft and free agency at a position group that failed them in 2024 beyond Trey Hendrickson. So DJ Reader obviously became a Detroit Lion last year, but Hendrickson's performance didn't skip a beat. I think a lot of us were thinking that Trey was going to find out quickly that without DJ Reader, he was going to have some problems, and he didn't. I think that Trey is just getting better and better and better. Now, Cincinnati needs to take advantage of a draft that is ripe with quality and quantity up front. So they're mocking defensive line. And where did I put the Bengals here? Where did I put the Bengals? I went with defensive line. Walter Nolan. Hey, that's a spot-on pick. So far, I am 4 of 7. 4 of 7 that I'm matching with whoever this unnamed individual is. Next up, I'm going to just fly through a few of these. Cleveland Browns quarterback. The list of needs is lengthy, but with a Deshaun Watson experiment having failed miserably and expensively, the Browns are looking for both a quarterback of the present and one in the future. My take on this last night was, yeah, that makes sense, but why not find a serviceable quarterback in free agency? You're going to have Aaron Rodgers, probably Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold, which I don't think any one of those 3 are going to want to go to the Browns. Jameis Winston, who is a free agent of their own, probably won't return. You're going to have other guys available. Maybe they make a play for Daniel Jones. Maybe they don't. I think they find a quarterback in free agency, and they're just going to kind of limp through the next couple of seasons, rebuild their team. That's if the Browns are smart. I don't think they're smart, so they probably will waste this pick on a quarterback when next year is a much better option. I gave them Abdul Carter. You cannot watch Myles Garrett leave and not fill that pipeline immediately. Your fan base will absolutely kill you. Dallas Cowboys, defensive tackle is what is being said for them. So after the season the Cowboys had, you can pick from several positions, but none is more pressing than defensive tackle. The Cowboys have one stellar player at the position, and that is Osa O. And he is a pending unrestricted free agent. So their defensive line is in trouble. And when you look at what did I slot for the Cowboys? I went the opposite direction here. They don't have a running back. They don't. So I gave them Ashton Jeanty, or Jeanty, how you say his last name. You can't pass on that guy. And I can't imagine that the Dallas Cowboys are going to pass on one of the best running backs probably in a generation. Like, he could be better than Gibbs. I know that's not a sexy take, but he almost beat Barry Sanders' record last year. So I expect Dallas to take a running back, but defensive tackle makes sense too. Broncos tight end. So the Broncos had less receiving production from the tight end position in 23 than any other team in the NFL. They had a chance to solve the problem by selecting Brock Bowers with the number 12 pick in last year's draft, and of course they didn't. They chose Bo Nix instead. It was a wise move. It turned out to be the right move. So tight end for the Broncos, and I gave them, I don't know why these are not in order. I have no clue why they're not in order based on the draft order. I got to find the Broncos. I gave them a wide receiver, Luther Burden III. So I'm thinking the same thing. They want offensive production for Bo Nix. Detroit Lions. Eric, who are we looking for?
All right. The Lions could really use another explosive pass rusher opposite Aiden Hutchinson, but they also need much more depth between the tackles. As we saw how things got once Aleem McNeil went down with injury. Even if Detroit opts to bring back Zadarius Smith on some sort of rework deal, the Lions still need more on the outside in terms of pass rushers who can win one-on-ones opposite a dominant player, Hutchinson. Edge might be a higher priority than defensive tackle, but not much. In my opinion, it should be defensive tackle.
Interesting. In your opinion, it's defensive tackle, or is that their opinion?
Opinion.
I like defensive tackle too. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just because Aleem's going to be out for the first half of the season.
I think defensive tackle makes a lot of sense. I don't think you can go wrong with defensive line, period, whether it's edge or defensive tackle. I think that you're going to have to take the best player available that won't be an injury concern. I don't think that Brad is going to, somehow take, a formerly injured player at 28. I don't think that's going to be an issue at all. And I think that Lions fans have had enough of it. I understand it. I mean, we wouldn't have J-Mo if he wasn't injured probably. But then again, maybe we would have. I mocked edge to the Lions, Landon Jackson. Now, some said that was a reach. I don't believe so. But we won't know until we see the combine. Because I have to match up, like I say all the time, what they're doing on tape, what they're doing on the field. I have to see it mimicked in the combine. I have to see, are those hips, do they swivel? Are they oily? Do they get off, the line quickly? The 10 split means a lot to me. The broad means a lot to me. 40 doesn't mean squat. And then running the bags, right, for defensive line, in and out of the bags. That was one of our favorites, I think, last year. Eric was watching Braden Fisk and others, Byron Murphy, Jared Verse running through the bags. I don't even know what they call that. But anyway, that was a fun one to watch. Green Bay Packers for you, Riley.
Yeah, Green Bay, they have listed as a pass rusher as well. Green Bay could use a disruptive pass rusher on the edge or interior, but Gutekunst is more likely to find one on the edge and maybe enticed to go all in for the likes of Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, or Trey Hendrickson, or Josh Sweat this offseason. If he truly wants to contend for a championship, like he said, that may be the most sensible way to do so.
Interesting. So the Packers rank 13th in pressure percentage and 10th in sack percentage would tell me that they don't have an issue up front. Mm-hmm. That would tell me that they need some minor retooling. And if whether they do anything in free agency or not, I personally think that they're going to go a different direction. I think they're going to go on the back end of the defense. I think that they're losing. Is it Jair Alexander that's a free agent? No.
Yeah.
No.
They want to trade him.
They want to trade him. I thought they were losing another corner, another safety this year. But anyway, be that as it may, I went J.D. Barron at pick 23 for the Green Bay Packers. I mean, he is an untapped, that's the wrong word. The guy has huge upside. Let's just put it that way. I think that J.D. Barron's going to be a hell of a corner. And I wouldn't be mad if J.D. Barron or Trey Amos made their way to the Lions roster, be that in the first or second round. I know a lot of other people will be upset, but I wouldn't be mad. Green Bay Packers, I put a corner to them. Pass rusher, it makes sense. But at pick 23, they're probably going to go defensive line, to be honest with you. And I know they have some assets on the defensive line already, but bulk it up, back them up. That's the way you do it. Houston Texans, offensive line, although they have won their division and reached postseason in back-to-back seasons, the Texans have quite a few needs on the offensive line, defensive tackle, and wide receiver. No position carries a higher priority, though, than offensive line, especially for what will be the third-year quarterback, C.J. Stroud. He was sacked 52 times last season during the regular season and another 11 times in 2 postseason games. If you're not going to address offensive line, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm curious where I put them last night. Oh, look at that. I gave him Gray Zabel at pick 25, tackle out of North Dakota State. So I kind of saw the same thing here. They clearly need to protect their quarterback. I think that that's the smart thing to do. Matter of fact, I said last night, I think any general manager of an NFL team would be wise to, put an insurance policy around their quarterback. I mean, I think that it is imperative that a general manager does not draft a rookie quarterback to an offensive line that is trash. You're going to ruin that quarterback. So get an offensive line, then get your quarterback. That's how it works. Indianapolis Colts, they're slotted to take a safety. Aside from quarterback Anthony Richardson drastically improving as a passer last season, I think he's a porcelain doll personally. But the Colts' biggest positional need this offseason is at safety, according to this unnamed source. But that was James Boyd that made this comment. Where did I put Indianapolis at? I gave him Mykel Williams as edge. I don't know, agree or disagree. Would you rather have a safety or an edge if you could have Mykel Williams? I don't think anyone's going to want to pass on Mykel Williams, at least right now. Jacksonville Jaguars, offensive line. The Jags need to boost their offensive line and surely need a left tackle. New coach Liam Cohen's offense will have a running identity. So the Jaguars need a tough physical line to set the tone. They have the 5th pick in the draft, which I think it's a little early to take an offensive lineman, especially when or if it goes this way. Now, I did give the Patriots a tackle at 4, but if it went quarterback, edge, quarterback, tackle, if this gentleman slipped, Travis Hunter, there is no way the Jaguars are going to walk away from Travis Hunter. There's just no way. But that gives them a 2-player probability, right? Corner will be his main position, and he can also highlight or moonlight, if you will, as a wide receiver for Trevor Lawrence. Kansas City, Eric, what are they looking for?
Oh, this might sound repetitive, but the Chiefs are back to where they started last spring, or in 2023, 2022, or even 2021. If the Chiefs were 3-time champions, their biggest roster needs would be the same. They desperately need a viable left tackle. Quarterback Patrick Mahomes was sacked 6 times in the Super Bowl. Mahomes will be 30 next season, and he could, for the first time in his career, be without tight end Travis Kelce, who is considering retirement. The Chiefs must acquire a left tackle who can be a dependable starter for multiple years. Remember, in the past 6 years, the Chiefs have started a different left tackle in each of their 5 Super Bowl appearances.
Interesting. Look, I think you want to protect Patrick Mahomes. There's no reason to want to send this guy, running for his life all the time. Clearly, he couldn't do it in the Super Bowl. The Chiefs they were under attack from every direction. But what's funny, there's not one blitz. If a 4-man front can beat you, you got problems. And they had problems. So their situation, I would liken it to the Detroit Lions defense, right? Their offensive front was not good. They had problems all season. They had some injuries here and there, similar to the Lions, right? We just had too many holes, and I think it just all came to a head in the Super Bowl for the Chiefs. Funny enough, my pick for the Chiefs was Armand Membu, tackle, Missouri. So I'm in line with this one. Las Vegas Raiders to you, Riley. Quick note. We are almost to 75 likes. Come on, people. Just take 2 seconds, jump out, smash the like button, get back in. That's all we ask. If you really want all these ads, we'll leave it on. But if you want ads off, just hit the like button. That helps us grow. Go ahead, Riley.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, too, because I think you said at the start of the segment, you saw this article after you did your mock draft last night, right?
Saw it this morning.
Saw it this morning. So just everybody in the chat, that's important context, I feel, to kind of keep in mind. For the Las Vegas Raiders, they've got the biggest position of need as quarterback. New coach Pete Carroll tried to downplay the need for a quarterback at his opening press conference, saying that the Raiders want to build the team around the position. But the Raiders still need a plan at quarterback, whether it's drafting one at number 6 to pair with a veteran or opening their big wallet for likely top free agent Sam Darnold. Incumbent Aiden O'Connell will likely still be on the roster, while Gardner Minshew figures to be released. So the Raiders appear to be set to bring in 2 new bodies to compete for the starting job. Many will point to Russell Wilson due to his ties to the former Seahawks coach, though we're not sure Carroll will go that route.
So, yeah, on that note, Riley, when you say it's important context, do you know how hard it is not to open an email when it says Mel Kiper's mock draft or Brugler's mock draft or, Jeremiah's mock draft? It is so hard. It is so tempting to just peek. And after I was doing my notes on the mock draft and kind of going through all the teams, then I'll start to look around. But it is really hard to stay away this time of the season anyway.
It may be obvious, but why do you do that, Will?
I want my own opinions out there. I want my own work. I want to know that I was wrong on my own. I don't want to know that I was wrong because I listened to somebody else. And quite honestly, I hate to say it this way. I'm not trying to be conceited or anything, but I feel I did a better job in my mock in 2023 than anybody else out there for the first round. For anything past that, forget about it. You're just throwing darts into the wind, or darts into a tornado, as I like to call it. But in 2023, I hit it. I mean, I hit all 5 Lions draft picks, which, went into the 3rd round. I hit on, and that article I put out well before the draft. Now, I don't have my blog up anymore. It will be back up this year, but I'm going to start printing stuff before I talk about it, because that way I have the receipts upon receipts. But the whole point is, you follow somebody else and you start listening to everybody else. It takes away from your own thought process. It's good to have conversation with people. It's, and talk about it after the fact. Now, after the first one, yeah, it's kind of hard to not go back and compare, but I'm still going to stay in my zone so that I know that the work that I did was either right or wrong. How do I get better? What did I miss? And the hardest part is, and I said this last night, look, I don't have a 50-page background on these players. I don't have, their college behavioral reports and grades and, any notes that they possibly have on these guys. I don't have connections to every college, around the land here in the United States or in British Columbia. So I have to go purely on tape and then on the draft. And then with the little bit of information that I get from a couple of people that I have, that's it. That's all I have. So it's even that much harder. But here's the silver lining. Maybe it's better. Maybe it's better that I don't have analysis paralysis because I have so much data that you don't know what to do with it. Keep it simple, stupid, right? The KISS theory has always shined through for me. I'm going to keep it so simple that it's stupid. You can't go wrong. So we ended up with Las Vegas Raiders quarterback. And I think I also mocked them a quarterback last night. I'm pretty positive that I did. And I went with Shedeur Sanders at number 6. I saw Jalen Milroe as the number 1 quarterback so far in this draft, based on tape. You cannot deny Shedeur Sanders' arm talent or his decision-making or his incredible stats, but I want more for him to be the number 1 quarterback. I'm not saying he won't end up the number 1 quarterback, but I wanted to see more. Right now, I think Jalen Milroe is a little bit more polished. I think Cam Ward is extremely exciting. And then you also have to look at the fit to the team. Where do they really match well? And that's why I think Jalen matches Tennessee, and I think that Cam Ward matches New York, and Shedeur Sanders matches the Raiders. The Chargers' interior offensive line is being mocked to them by Daniel Popper. The Chargers have one of the best tackle duos in the league in Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. But they have to solve the interior of the line this offseason to elevate their offense. The interior played particularly poorly against the Texans and in the Chargers wild card loss. So obviously that game's not sitting well with Jim Harbaugh or the GM Joe Hortiz. So they're expecting interior offensive line. What did I mock to the Chargers? Where is it? Where's the bolts? I gave them a tight end, Tyler Warren. So not quite interior. Matter of fact, the exact opposite. I gave them an option on the outside. So I still think it's the right call. I think the tight end would give them more options on the offensive line. They need someone blocking downfield. I think Tyler Warren's a great piece. But that doesn't mean they wouldn't try to fit interior offensive line in. I just feel it's too early. Unless they're going to convert a tackle, I think it's way too early to take a guard or a center. None of the guards or the centers get a first-round grade for me this year. The Rams' offensive tackle is being mocked to them by Jordan Roderick. Now he says, let me be clear. If the Rams can't figure out quarterback Matthew Stafford's contract or a team comes to them with a tempting trade offer, quarterback is the answer. And I would say the quarterback is absolutely not the answer for the Rams, especially in the first round. There's no other quarterbacks available. And this is going to be a bridge year. This is where you could see a Kirk Cousins or just about anybody else not named Aaron Rodgers head to the Rams. So they're saying offensive tackle, and for the Rams, I gave them a linebacker. I think that they're going to want to stack on stack on stack that defense. And Jihad Campbell, yes, he's mocked in the late second round. I think he's going to squeeze into the first round. Love his tape. Dude's crazy good. I would love to see him actually be a Detroit Lion. But at pick 26, the Rams do it again, and they snake what could be the best linebacker in the draft ahead of the Detroit Lions, where they snaked what was the best edge rusher in the draft in Jared Verse. Miami Dolphins, interior offensive line. Look, Tua has got a problem, and that's staying on his feet. So identifying the problem is easy. Fixing it won't be. Again, interior offensive line, I think in the first round is too early. Now, the Dolphins' biggest priority this offseason has to be fixing the interior offensive line, according to Jim Iao. But more specifically, they need 2 new guards to line up next to a solid center, Aaron Brewer. What was once one of the league's most efficient running attacks nosedived in 2024, largely due to the substandard guard play. Now, I mocked safety. Malachi Starks. Miami has a couple of free agents this season, and I think that is the biggest reason why they're going to go defense. More importantly, where they're picking, they will have the pick of the litter. Whether it is safety or corner or defensive line, I think they're going to stick with the defensive side of the football in the first round, and they will address the interior offensive line as they get deeper into the draft, round 2, round 3. Minnesota Vikings, Eric, who are they bringing in this season?
All right. It says offensive line. So throw Minnesota into the long list of teams that need interior offensive line upgrades. The Vikings have tried multiple players at both guard spots in the last few seasons, and most have been turnstiles. Ezra Cleveland was traded for Dalton Reisner, who was serviceable in pass protection. Reisner was passed over for Blake Brandel, who allowed the second most pressures among guards this season. Former second-round pick Ed Ingram was benched for Reisner. The musical chairs can't continue. Even if Minnesota keeps center Garrett Bradbury on the final year of his contract, it desperately needs reinforcements alongside him. The Vikings have about $60 million in cap space and a first-round pick. They must use some of those resources and maybe both on their offensive front.
It's interesting. Who doesn't need offensive line, right? Everybody does. If you're not trying to make your offensive line better, then I feel like you're not trying to help your quarterback or even your running game. I mean, you definitely need to dive deep into the trenches. I think that's where good teams get great in one season. You can take a team that is on the fringe and you could totally load up on offensive line talent, and that is what can take you to the next step. Just look at your Detroit Lions. They are the exact reason why offensive line is so important. When we miss a couple of guys due to injury, look how the offense oftentimes does nosedive a little bit. There's been games where they've completely tanked. So offensive line is important. I think the Lions should address, offensive line again this year, but not early. But for Minnesota, I gave them a tight end. I don't see Colston Loveland sitting around too much longer, especially at pick 24. I feel like, Hawkinson is just not the guy for me. He's been injured, hasn't played a lot. When he has played, has not been good. I feel like his time has come and gone. That expensive contract's probably going to get moved on. I think that Hawkinson's probably on the trade block this year, and they bring in a rookie, none better than Colston Loveland, to match up with none other than J.J. McCarthy. So relationships mean everything. Could Loveland be the key to help out J.J. McCarthy in what could be his first year under center? New England Patriots, what are we looking at for them, Riley?
Yeah, following right in suit, offensive line. We'll make this simple. The offensive line, anywhere on the offensive line. The Patriots need help at pretty much every position on the offensive front five. Left tackle, great. Need it. Right guard, sure. And move Mike Onwegu outside. There's a chance that the Patriots will have 4 new starting offensive linemen in 2025, so look for them to be very active there, both in free agency and in the draft.
Patriots, offensive line. Yes, I think it makes a ton of sense. I'm curious what I thought last night as I was going through this exercise. getting through, the later parts of this draft or early parts of this draft is kind of tough, right? Calvin Banks Jr. was the only offensive lineman that I thought was worthy enough right now to be a top 5 pick. Honestly, I probably wouldn't take any of the offensive linemen in the top 5 right now. Probably not even the top 8 because of the other talent that is available defensively. And this is where your team either is BPA, best player available, or they're drafting for need. And I think that it is extremely risky to draft for need, and you could let a generational player walk. Right now, I don't see a generational player on the offensive line that early. Maybe outside the top 8, but not that early. But I still gave him Calvin Banks Jr., tackle from Texas. The dude was absolutely dominant in his first year in the SEC. I mean, he went up against the elite conference, and he got even better. So once I see what he does in the combine, that could be all the difference for me. New Orleans Saints, they are pegged to get wide receiver. Amos Morale III says it would be easy to suggest the biggest concern is quarterback. But the Saints went 5-5 with Carr. If he doesn't miss 7 games, New Orleans likely would have been in the hunt for the NFC South title. I won't disagree with that. I just disagree that Carr's the answer. Now, the bigger issue facing the franchise is whoever is at quarterback in 25 needs someone to throw to. I think that is a valuable point, or a valid point even. But I didn't go that direction. The Saints receivers did finish with 1,833 yards last season, which is terrible. They were 31st in the NFL. But they also had, Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed miss 9 and 11 games. But adding a reliable target obviously would go a long way. But how about the other side of the football? They have to be able to stop teams too. And they had a rough time. And I think that their defense would benefit from Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. Again, that's an early pick for me for a corner. I don't see a corner going in the top 10. But when I looked at the Saints and what they needed, it just made more sense to me. New York Giants, quarterback. So while there's quite a few needs that could be addressed for a team that finished 3-14, they didn't help themselves last year, right? There's no greater pick right now or no greater need than a quarterback for the Giants. There's just not a long-term starter on the roster right now. And Joe Schoen and head coach Brian Daboll, both returning, there's a lot of pressure on them to get this draft right. So expect them to make some bold moves. I said it last night. I do not see how any of these teams in the top 5 don't want to move back. Either you're going to roll the dice on a quarterback, or you're going to move back and stack some picks and let all the other teams that are, hot after Jalen Milroe and Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders duke it out. Make them pay through the nose. That's what I would do. I'm sorry. You can wait another year. You can have a serviceable quarterback come in and play for a season and just fix the other parts of your team first. You are not a playoff contender in 2025. So why bring in a quarterback in 2025? However, I gave him Cam Ward anyway. New York Jets, what is Aaron Glenn going to do this season, you think, Eric?
Well, here we are again. Familiar territory for this franchise. Aaron Rodgers is on the way out, so the Jets have no long-term solutions at the most important position. Tyrod Taylor is on the roster and can be a fine stopgap solution, but it's unclear if Aaron Glenn views him as a viable starter for 2025, and he certainly isn't beyond that. The Jets do have other needs in an offseason when the quarterback market isn't great, like right tackle, wide receiver, cornerback, and defensive tackle, but it all starts at QB. I'd expect them to explore all options and possibly land either a stopgap veteran, if not Taylor, someone like Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr, a lottery ticket free agent, Justin Fields, or a rookie. And they have them taking a quarterback. In my opinion, I don't think they're going to take a quarterback. I think they'll just go in the trenches somewhere, either on the defensive line or the offensive line. That would be my opinion.
Yeah, quarterback it's an odd duck for the Jets, especially picking at number 7. I think that they would be much better suited with a defensive-minded coach to address the defense. I mean, their defense it's not terrible. They had a bad year last year and from certain respects, but let's be real here. Aaron Glenn is a defensive-minded coach. He's going to want to fix his defense first. with Aaron Rodgers on his way out, I think that gives you a pass and to say, hey, our offense might not be great this year. Tyrod Taylor can absolutely be a stopgap. He can absolutely be a serviceable quarterback this season. And that's why defense made the most sense. I have Mason Graham out of Michigan going to the New York Jets. Now, Philadelphia Eagles, Riley?
Yeah, the biggest thing for the Eagles, it says extensions with key defenders. The Eagles just won their second Super Bowl while ambushing Patrick Mahomes with the top-ranked defense that has 4 key members whose contracts are expiring. Zach Bond will be the hottest name to hit free agency after becoming an NFL Defensive Player of the Year finalist in his final year as an inside linebacker. Josh Sweat changed agencies the week before the big game. That was fine timing for him, but how much will general manager Howie Roseman be willing to pay for a soon-to-be 28-year-old edge rusher after trading away Hassan Reddick last offseason? Milton Williams recorded a season-high 5 sacks in the regular season as an interior lineman. Isaiah Rodgers filled in during critical moments as a backup corner, and the Eagles may want to keep him around with Darius Slay nearing the end of his career in Philadelphia. It's wishful thinking to believe they'll all sign team-friendly deals. For each player the Eagles don't re-sign, each position becomes a need this offseason.
That is a tough spot to be in, right? You just won a Super Bowl. It happens every time. These players right now that were all starters for the Eagles, if you are now a free agent, all you hear right now is, well, I guess... That's all you hear. Yeah. That's all everywhere they go, right? They don't even have to have earphones in or earbuds. All they're hearing is cash registers because they're about to get paid. And look, they already got their ring. So what's next? Max contract. Give me as much money as you can. I don't even care where I go. I got my Super Bowl. Some players think like that. Other players, they're thinking run it back. Let's do something amazing in Philly. But I just don't think it's going to happen. I think a lot of these players are going to leave. And I think that, the defensive mindset in Philly they're going to stay true on their defensive mindset. I guess is where I'm going with this. Last night, I mocked Shamar Stewart to the Eagles, edge rusher out of Texas A&M. I don't believe that Shamar right now is a first-round talent, but I got him going in the first round at the last pick. Pittsburgh Steelers, quarterback stability is the key here. Mitchell Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, a list of quarterbacks trying to succeed, Ben Roethlisberger. I think that this one is simple. I think that Russell Wilson obviously is not going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I think it makes sense that he could end up anywhere else around the league. And honestly, if the Raiders are listening, you bring in Wilson, you bring in Shedeur Sanders, you let Shedeur sit. I know that won't go over well with Mr. Sanders, but oh well. And you let the kid learn for a year. If not, look, I think Wilson's going to land somewhere, probably the Browns. That actually makes a good, match, if you will, and maybe even the Jets. He could end up at with the Jets as well. That gives them, their pass, right? It gives them 1 year to start building. I don't think the quarterback is the answer for the Steelers, especially not where they're picking. Let me see. What did I mock to them at 21? I gave them a wide receiver, which is kind of weird because I think defense is probably where they're going to go, honestly, but this was mock 1.0. And I don't know how much longer a 6'5" wide receiver in McMillan is going to last on the board. And at 21, he had to go. He just had to go. There's no way that you're going to let that kid sit there anymore. If you're going BPA, you're not letting him go. San Francisco 49ers defensive tackle. This one, I guess it makes, quite a bit of sense. I don't even remember what I mocked to them last night. Let me see what I mocked. Got to find them first. Okay. Defensive tackle. So 5 of the last 7 tailbacks the 49ers faced in 24 finished with more than 100 yards rushing. It might have been 6 of 7 had James Conner played in a meaningless finale for the Cardinals. Meanwhile, the 49ers defensive tackles recorded 1 sack. Malik Collins against the Chicago Bears in week 14. Over the last 8 games, that's terrible, right? With Javon Hargrave scheduled to be released before free agency, they have 1 marginal starter in Collins. and one developing player in Evan Anderson. I would agree the defensive tackle makes a lot of sense. And especially at pick 11, they're going to have the pick of the litter. But I went a different direction. I went with Jalon Walker here, linebacker out of Georgia. This kid could be top 3 linebackers coming into this draft. Where he's coming out of the draft, we'll find out in 2026. But I went linebacker. Seattle, Eric.
All right. Last offseason, the Seahawks drafted 3 offensive linemen and signed 5 in free agency. Yet they have them taking an offensive lineman. They have good tackles in Charles Cross and Abe Lucas, but last year featured an in-season rotation at right guard. Veteran left guard Laken Tomlinson, which some of you guys might remember, is entering free agency and didn't provide anything that would make re-signing him a priority. Second-year center Olu Oluwatimi had a decent finish to the season after Connor Williams suddenly retired, but the Seahawks could use an upgrade at the position as well.
Dude, hell of a pronunciation on that name.
Really?
That's pretty crazy. That's good.
Did I get it?
I think you got it. I think you nailed it.
One time. I'm on the game today. Somebody said I sound like the guy from Price is Right.
There you go. So look, offensive line, of course, it makes sense for Seattle. They still have Geno that they're planning on rolling with this year. But I thought it made more sense that Kenneth Grant, defensive lineman out of Michigan, would make an impact for this defense. Clearly, the defense is the other side that needs a lot of help. And as far as offensive line goes, yeah, it's too early to take a guard. I'm sorry. But at 18, unless you're going to take Gray Zabel or somebody and turn them into a guard, then I don't think it makes sense to take a big, long, mean tackle and try to force them into a guard position. I think once you get over, 6'4" as a guard, I think that it's almost too tall for your quarterbacks, right? To be able to see over the guards and to be able to complete passes over the guards. So I think that they take Gray Zabel. Honestly, I'm sorry, Seattle. I think that they take Kenneth Grant right now. Mach 1.0. It'll be a mess. I promise. Tampa Bay Bucks edge rusher. The Bucks leading sackers last season were Kalijah Kancey and Vita Vea, who had 7.5 and 7. A little more juice off the edge would help complement the tackles. I agree with that statement, but I think you always want to start with the tackles and work your way out. Inside out is the way to work, but I went a different direction. Now, you guys are all going to slam me for this one. But when I watch this gentleman's tape and I look at a guy that the Lions took last season, I see a twin. But I see a twin that could be better than Terry and Arnold, and that is Trey Amos, cornerback, Ole Miss. This dude is special. I promise you, he hits like the missile that Amik Robertson is, and he's got the arms to deflect passes and mix it up with these receivers. He is as fiery as they come, pure tackler, great speed. I love the dude. If he slips to the Lions, I'm telling you right now, I better hear by Brad Holmes. Tennessee Titans quarterback. When you're 3-14, you have all kinds of needs. I don't think that's any surprise. The only position group that really don't necessarily need addressing on this team is running back for Tennessee. I'm going to make this one quick. I went with Jalen Milroe. I think that Jalen Milroe fits Tennessee. It fits what they're trying to do offensively. And I think that he's going to be one of the best, if not the best quarterback coming into this draft this season here in 2025. And the last one, I don't know. You guys want to rock, paper, scissors for who does the last one, or who someone want to volunteer to take it?
Go ahead, Riley.
Riley, you're up. Washington Commanders.
I'll do the honors. They've got edge defender. This could go in numerous directions considering Washington's roughly 30 free agents, but one issue stood out above all last season. Run games chewed up the defense all season. I wish we would have ran the ball more in the playoff game, but that's neither here nor there. Averaging 4.8 yards per carry with significant damage done outside and before contact. The Commanders also lacked a consistent pass rush despite a surprising 10.5 sacks from 2025 free agent Dante Fowler.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want more pass rush, I guess, right? I mean, that's what we've been hearing all offseason. I mean, I've been here for 3 seasons. More pass rush. It's like it should replace more cowbell, right? More pass rush is the new term for more cowbell. No, I don't think it's going to be an edge rusher, especially at pick 29. I think that they're going to want to give Jaden Daniels a nice weapon on the offense. I think that he did well with what he had last season, but I think he can do even more. And that is where if Emeka Egbuka somehow slips in this draft, somehow, I think that he becomes a commander. Or I think some wide receiver is going to become a commander. And that is your wrap up here on all 32 teams' needs ahead of the NFL draft. Where we're going to go next here is the story of the day. Now, we've briefly discussed this in shows past. And that is Detroit Lions. What are they going to do this season with Aiden Hutchinson? So I find it funny. Now I am going to root to toot my horn for just 1 second, okay? When I talk about this stuff, it seems like I get a lot of flack. Maybe that just comes with the territory of doing what I do now daily, which is talking about sports, talking about the Lions. Maybe I'm just a little bit ahead of my time because when I look at things, I see things a lot differently than a lot of other people. And maybe that's good, maybe it's bad. You guys will be the judge as you stick around and find out a lot of things that I discuss, other people start to discuss later. Now, I'm not saying this individual, whoever wrote this, Ann Erickson, watched my show and decided to write about the same thing. But I brought this up right after our season ended, like almost immediately. And it had to be in the first show or two where I'm talking about Aiden Hutchinson and his impending extension or picking up the fifth-year option. I think without a doubt, the Lions are going to pick up the fifth-year option, without a doubt. But the Lions have been told not to extend Aiden Hutchinson or Jameson Williams contracts in 2025. That is a bold headline that I'm sure is going to get a ton of clicks. Matter of fact, I probably should have used it because in this business, right, we're in the business of selling headlines, right? No, wrong. At least according to Brad Holmes. The clickbait-worthy stuff that you're going to find in the media is just that. But if you want real, solid information, we're not going to win in April and May. I want to win too, but that's later on, in December, January, and February. And the work that we do here now will hopefully win us when that time comes. So as this article states, that as the Lions offseason ramps up, so does the talk about which Detroit Lions may be cutting a deal to stay in the Motor City. I found that terminology weird. Cutting a deal to stay in the Motor City for the long haul. And among the most prized Lions possessions up for a contract renewal, well, Aiden Hutchinson and Jameson Williams. Both had impressive seasons with the Lions, even though Hutchinson was cut short by week 6 due to a broken leg in multiple places. But now the Lions are urged not to extend Hutchinson and not to extend Williams, at least for now. I said the same exact thing. I said it doesn't make any sense for a couple of reasons. One, you have the fifth-year option. Just because you've played 3 years in the NFL does not automatically guarantee you an extension. 2, Aiden's hurt. I think it would be the dumbest move in history to give a guy a blank check when he hasn't even been back to the field after his injury. Now, a lot of us are speculating and hoping, honestly, it's hopium, that he's going to be just fine. And I'm, again, hoping that he will be just fine. Jameson Williams, on the other end, nice comeback season. Like, finally, you're starting to see what he can do. The last game of the season, something was bothering him. Something didn't make any sense in that game because he didn't look like he was bought in at all in that game. I don't know if something was said before the game, like, Ben's leaving, and I don't know if he said that he was leaving, but it just seemed like the entire team was off, like really off. And the way that he acted in that game, I was not happy with, his lackadaisical approach, getting back to the line in the fourth quarter, doing the things that, culminate a 15-yard penalty. There's just no need for that stuff. But that doesn't mean that we don't extend him because of those things. I still think that JMO has a very bright future in the NFL. And I think he's going to have a hell of a season in 2025. But I think that by extending these guys now, you're shooting yourself in the foot. And the only one that even makes sense is Aiden, because then you might save a few $1,000,000 later because the contract's only going to get more expensive. But at the same time, the salary cap's also going to rise. So it helps to offset some of that. And next year, 2026, well, that's when Jared Goff starts to get paid. So a lot of things are starting to come together, at the wrong time. But that's why roster roulette is so important. But this article by Ann Erickson also highlighted a local writer in Mike Payton. Now, Payton adds that the Lions dealt with, quote, a near season-long injury with Aiden Hutchinson and suspension with Williams, end quote. And then he was quoted again as saying the likelihood is that both players are probably going to want to wait until next year anyway. Now, I don't know what would give him the thought that they would want to wait. I mean, I think that Jameson probably wants more guaranteed money in his deal right now, and it would make a lot of sense for him to want to get an extension. But is he willing to take a deal? Is he willing to take, a 2-year extension at less than, fifth-year option price, right? I think that would make, or look, we haven't had to use oh my God, the word escapes me right now. We haven't had to use a franchise tag on any of these guys, right? I don't think we've used it at all in the last four seasons.
Nope.
So at some point we probably will, but is he willing to take a deal that's less than the franchise tag, that's also less than a 5th-year option to stick around for a couple more years and then renegotiate? I don't know if you invest heavy in J-Mo right now. I think that you invest light and then you could potentially use him as trade bait if you needed to. I know that's not a sexy opinion. I get it. Aiden, maybe he's being told to wait as well because he's coming off an injury and he's not going to get top money. He won't. You'd be dumb to give him top money. And it's not because of what he can do or what he has done. It's because of where he is right now, which is injured, and he's not back to the field. But it goes a little bit deeper. And this goes to a situation that I was calling out early about Kirby Joseph. Now, this article says that maybe it's time to sink your teeth into Kirby Joseph and get him locked up for the foreseeable future. Could. I mean, if Aiden and J-Mo don't get extended and they just get the 5th-year option picked up, that does leave the door open for a Trey Hendrickson or a Max Crosby or a mid-tier defensive, line help in the $12 million range per year, or another corner coming in as a veteran in that $12 to $15 to $16 million range. And that all makes sense to me. But Kirby, he's going to garner $18 million a year. He's going to want at least a 3 or 4 year deal. That is going to be big money. And then you're not going to be able to fill in with Brian Branch's contract because all of these other contracts are going to come to a head. So you're going to have to put your foot in the ground right now today, Brad Holmes. Are you riding with Kirby or are you riding with Brian Branch? Because one of those two is going to stay, but not both. I guarantee it. And I doubt that Kirby is going to stick around in 2020 or that he's going to play in 2025 if he doesn't have a contract. So let me read a little bit of what this article says, and then I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Talking about A to Z Sports, NFL analyst Mike Payton urges the Lions to give safety Kirby Joseph a deal during the offseason and not Hutchinson or Williams. Now, before you get too hot-headed about this pick, note that Payton says some of this has to do with timing. Okay, makes sense. He notes that Detroit picked up both Hutchinson and Williams as first-round draft picks, so they're both eligible for 5th-year options. That means Detroit is able to do their deals next year. Payton adds that the Lions dealt with a near-season-long injury with Hutch, and we know what happened with J-Mo this year, a couple games suspension, but also had a really big bounce-back season. Goes on to quote this where he says, that way that they can have a good season and maximize their profits, right now the Lions would not be offering them top dollar based on those factors. I agree with that. So those are some reasons to wait on inking a new deal with Hutchinson and Williams. As far as moving on Joseph, Payton notes that the safety had a stellar all-pro season, quote, that saw him get votes for Defensive Player of the Year as well. He adds that the Lions could do with Joseph what they did when working out Penei Sewell, Jared Goff, and Amon-Ra St. Brown's contracts during the last offseason. Get, quote, ahead of the market. Now, that does make sense, and I feel like that's how Brad Holmes does his work anyway. Now, as a side note, Payton adds that Baltimore Ravens All-Pro Kyle Hamilton is also up for an extension this season, and that many analysts and experts think that he'll be the highest paid safety in the NFL. That means if the Lions act quickly and finish a deal with Joseph before Hamilton signs, they could save some money. So first off, Eric, I'm going to ask you. I know we've talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
Do you wait on Aiden and JMO? Do you sign Aiden and JMO to an extension? Do you just pick up the 5th-year option? This is a question to the comments in the chat later too, especially, everyone in the chat and the audience later. Do you wait on Aiden and JMO with the thought process that you're going to keep Kirby and you're going to probably make him the 2nd highest paid safety in the NFL, and that's going to be $18 million a year. And then you're going to have to redo the whole damn thing next year with Branch, Hutch, and JMO and others, right? Because then you're talking Gibbs, Laporta, Campbell. Who else out of that draft class? Gibbs, Laporta, Campbell. Who am I missing? Gibbs, Laporta, Campbell.
Well, Branch is in that class, but
And Branch. Yeah, so Branch. So next season, you're going to have 6 or 7 guys you're not going to want to let go. And you're talking max deals for all these guys. Even at the base rate of $15 million, I'm seeing no less than $100 million added to the cap number in 2026 just for a few guys. Right? They may not hit until 27 or 28, the way they do the contracts, but I easily see $100 million just in 4 contracts getting added to the Lions' bottom, or 5 contracts added to the Lions' bottom line. There's no way we're going to be able to keep all these guys. So here's the question once more. Do you wait on Aiden and JMO this year? You pick up the 5th, you get a deal with Kirby, or do you try to trade Kirby, get it his best pick as you can, like a 2nd round, maybe a late day 3, and just move on and know that you can find a safety in the draft and Brian Branch is going to hold it down and you find a free agent that isn't going to cost you $18 million a year. Kirby's not going to play on his deal. His agent probably won't let him. And it's not Kirby, it's his agent. So that's the question.
Me, if I'm Brad Holmes, I do a 5th-year option on both JMO and Hutch. And then I draft an edge, I draft a wide receiver, and I draft a safety. Probably in that order. And I get these guys coming in not only to push the guys in front of them, but to have cheaper contracts behind them. So that way, when we do get to the 5th-year option or to the actual 5th year for JMO or Hutch, and one of them wants to not play, we can say, well, we have our person of the future. They're much cheaper. We're going to trade you to the, to the Browns. And there's nothing you can do about it because these original contracts, they don't have no trade clauses in them. So the Lions can do whatever they want with these people. So I think that's what I would do if I was in his position. I would probably try to work out a deal with Kirby, but maybe tell him, hey, if you play out your deal this year, you're going to do even better in a deal halfway through the season or after the season. We want to see what we can do this year. We want to see if we can win a Super Bowl this year. And the only way we can do it is if we do your contract after the season.
All right. So you brought up a good point. And see, Riley, I want to get your take too. So, but before I do, this is what I'm going to say. Everyone gets on Brad Holmes because of the culture, right? The identity, the drafting for depth and bringing in some project players. But as the story goes, not everyone can play in the city of Detroit for the Detroit Lions. And there's a reason why. If Brad has done his homework right, if he has cultivated relationships with his players and Dan Campbell, then these guys are going to look at Brad and Dan and say, you know what? Hell yeah, I'm going to play this year. Damn straight, I want to win a Super Bowl in Detroit. I know, based on what you've done with Panay and Amon-Ra and others, you're going to take care of me. You're a man of your word. So yeah, let's run it back. I'll wait a season. I get it. It's a financial thing. We've got other players that we need to put in the hopper, right? We've got other players that we need to add to this team. Let's go get it. Now that's the sugary, gumdrops raining down from heaven kind of thought process. Unlikely to happen. But if Brad did his homework and these guys are willing to put it on the line for Detroit, great. I just see where Kirby's probably thinking, but what happens if I go smash my leg like Aiden did? I'm not getting squat. And my career could be done. And I didn't get that contract. That's what I think an agent is going to say. Kirby, look what happened to Aiden this year. You have to sign a new deal. You're sitting out. Unfortunately, that's the nasty side of the business. And it's not Kirby. It's the agent. So we can't put the blame on the player. The agent controls everything. These players can't do what they want. As much as fans think that the players have control, they have zero control. They do not own their contract or anything. It's the agency that does. When they finally get to a point of doing their own contracts, then they can make their own decisions. So Riley, with all that said, and based on, what Eric said too, what is your answer? Now in the chat, I asked the same question. I said, do you wait on Hutch and JMO and sign Kirby to an extension? And 67% on 18 votes right now said yes. What do you think?
I think you bring up a great point, because as you guys are talking, I'm thinking, man, we just said this is what happens with the Philadelphia Eagles, right? When you win a Super Bowl, your team gets, people come in and take players off that roster. So that's going to be something we have to keep in mind going into this season. If the Lions are good, which we anticipate that they will be, it makes this even more complicated. Now, it's going to be worth it, and you got to trust that Dan Campbell can bring all these guys together. But it's tough. It's the human nature. Guys start being, the writing's on the wall, right? If this player's only going to be here for one more year. But I think as far as with JMO and with Hutch, I think it'd be pretty simple. I think Brad Holmes would have a number that here's what we would give you right now. And I think for both those guys, they're probably going to feel confident that, hey, no, we can bet on ourselves and go outperform that. And then you're okay paying those guys if they prove it. Cause I think you were right on that, Will, with Hutch needing to come back and show that he can perform at that level again. Cause there's no guarantee.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to fix my camera here. I don't know what is going on this morning. 1 second here. Here we go. I agree, man. I think that a large part of this is future, right? And how these players view their future. And it's not so much, what is going on? Why are my cameras not adjusting? It's not so much about, what have you done for me lately anymore? It's, what is my future going to look like for these players? And of course they would love to bring a Super Bowl for Detroit, or to Detroit. Of course they would love to play on a team that is absolutely loaded. And they have that opportunity. And it's this season. Like, this is the go all in season. And that's not Brad Holmes go all in. I highly doubt Brad Holmes is going to do anything that is out of the box abnormal for him. I think that he's going to do what he's been doing. I think that you have to wait on Hutch and JMO. And I think that both of them will understand why. JMO, you could make a case up and down and 10 times on Sunday that, dude, you've had problems since you've been in the NFL. However, teams see what you can do. You are going to attract a big market when you are on the trade block, or if we don't, renegotiate an extension. Hutch, the same thing. We know what you can do, but we have to see you do it again before we can shell out that big money. But if you're in the boat of wanting to win a Super Bowl above all else, you can wait one more year. You're already under contract. You're in year 3 of 5. We'll see you in year 4. Go have a great season. Mm-hmm. You know what? And if it doesn't work out in year 4, guess what? We have you for year 5 too. We just guaranteed you $15 million for JMO in year 5, and what will be, I think, 18 or 20 million for Aiden in year 5. That's pretty good money to play for. And that's guaranteed. Once the 5th year option is placed on these guys, that is all guaranteed. And everything they make in 2025 will be guaranteed as well. Right. So next up, Eric.
Oh, sure.
You got your sheet open?
Yep. Which one we going to go to?
It is the GM warning.
All right. Where the heck is it? All right. So, with rumors swirling about the Detroit Lions trading for the Browns defensive end Myles Garrett, one former 6-time GM of the year believes it would be a very risky move for Brad Holmes to make. Let's take a look at what Bill Polian had to say about a proposed trade for Myles Garrett to the Detroit Lions. So, the Detroit Lions have struggled in their attempts to find another productive edge rusher to line up against Aiden Hutchinson, falling flat in their efforts throughout the NFL draft and free agency. This has led many insiders to consider the Lions as a frontrunner in the quest to land Cleveland Browns star Myles Garrett, who is headed to the trade block and seeking a Super Bowl contender for his next stop. But one legendary NFL general manager has a warning to the Lions about the potential impact of such a trade. Now, the Lions would pay a big price for Myles Garrett. Longtime NFL executive Bill Polian sees risk and reward for the Lions in pursuing Garrett. Speaking to the Detroit Free Press, Polian warned that the Lions would pay a big price for the former NFL Defensive Player of the Year, who is expected to cost the new team several first-round draft picks. The Lions have built a Super Bowl contender by hitting on their draft picks, which could make it especially risky to give up significant draft capital to land Garrett, Polian warned. Teams that draft well are not anxious to part ways with their picks because they have a way of turning those picks into quality players. Polian knows a lot about putting together a roster. He was named the NFL Executive of the Year 6 times, leading the Buffalo Bills to 4 Super Bowl appearances as a general manager and reaching another 2 with the Indianapolis Colts, including a Super Bowl win. The Lions finished the NFL season tied with the best record at 15-2. They had a disappointing playoff exit after losing to the Washington Commanders in the divisional round. Polian warned that it would take more than Garrett to put them over the top, but you're never one player away. So whether they pursue a trade for Garrett or not, the Lions are expected to make some upgrades to their pass rush in the upcoming offseason. So what Bill Polian goes on to say is that he thinks that the Lions should kind of stick to what they're doing. Look through the draft and maybe shy away from this mega trade for Myles Garrett. And I kind of believe the same thing. I kind of think that the Lions should just keep doing what they're doing. Stick to the plan. Don't go for the shiny new toy just because there's a shiny new toy over here on the right that everyone's telling you to get the shiny new toy, get the shiny new toy. Sometimes it's better to build it the way you're doing it. And maybe your shiny new toy can be somebody through the draft that ends up being even better.
So did you say where the quote by Polian that teams that draft well are not anxious to part with their picks?
Yeah.
Okay. That is a very bold and purposeful statement. He's talking about how Brad Holmes has been extremely good at drafting, right? Mm-hmm. And because they have a way of turning these picks into high quality players, like Polian said, that should mean more to Lions fans than anything else because we've never been in that situation. Everything that we did for decades was free agency, maybe hit on a draft pick, always bringing in injured players. It never seemed to work out. That is not Brad Holmes' way. Brad Holmes is finding the right player at the right time in the draft, and it's worked. We've gone over it many, many, many times. You can't compare Brad Holmes' draft to anyone else's because no one else's really compares. There's a couple of teams maybe that you would say they had pretty damn good, productive drafts. But Brad has hit so well on even late round picks that every pick matters to him. The problem is this. As we get further into the depth of this roster and further into Brad Holmes being the GM, at some point, the later round picks are not going to find a way on this team. So hopefully you can find a point where you can get rid of some late round picks. But you know what? Late round picks, they're not going to bring in a Myles Garrett. Late round picks are not going to bring in Trey Hendrickson or anybody else that is halfway decent. Late round picks are what they are. But Polian obviously knows what he's talking about. And I don't know if you brought this up, but he was NFL Executive of the Year 6 times.
Mm-hmm.
He led the Buffalo Bills to 4 Super Bowl appearances as the GM. And then he also reached another one 2 times with the Colts, including a win at Super Bowl XLI. So he knows what he's talking about. I respect the hell out of Bill Polian. And I agree with him. This would be a huge problem for the Lions to waste all of this draft capital just to bring in one player that you're then going to have to turn around and pay $35 million. So we were just talking about Branch and Kirby, right? So $35 million could essentially keep Branch and Kirby almost. That's 2 players, right? So if you sign Garrett, kiss Kirby goodbye. It's not going to happen. If you sign Garrett, you're probably going to kiss one of Branch, Kirby, Jack, Gibbs, Laporta. One of them ain't making it. There's no way. Unless you can somehow go all in for 1 year, pay the dude, kick the can down the road, right? Pay the dude a minimum amount this year, and then get rid of him next year. But what's going to happen is you're going to lose all of that signing bonus. All of the bonus money is going to hit you in next year's cap or the year after that cap year. So what may cost you $10 million for this year might cost you $50 million to exit in one season. It's too risky. And I don't know, again, that a lot of people really spend the time to dig deep into cap situations, but it's not the number on top that you have to worry about. It's the numbers underneath. It's the numbers that you don't see when you dig deep into the contract and how it's laid out. If you put up 4 or 5 years of void years on this, all that hits you when you move off that player. So it doesn't make sense. I think that Bill Polian has hit it right on the head here. I do have a list of players that I'm probably not going to get to. I assume that both you guys have to get running today, or
I'm good.
Just Riley, you got to go?
Yeah, I've got like 10 more minutes.
Okay. Riley, what's your thoughts on this Myles Garrett, Bill Polian warning here by Bill Polian to not trade for Myles Garrett?
Yeah, I think, and you've mentioned that before, Will, the idea of you bring him in for a year, kick the can down the road. But I imagine it's so hard to keep your intentions kind of under wrap, right? If that was the plan, I think Myles Garrett would pick up on that. And then you have to consider how motivated is he going to be if he's like, well, they just brought me here for 1 year. He's a professional. He'll do everything he can. But if you acquire Myles Garrett, it's like when the Rams got Stafford. You want to be like, hey, we're bringing you in. You are our guy. You are the piece that we feel can take us over the top. And on top of that, we want you to finish your career here. That's how you would want that relationship to start. We've talked about it before on the show. The last thing I want to do is take away what I feel is Brad Holmes' best asset, his draft picks. So I think that's the way to go. And you talked about it. It's a great idea to have Myles Garrett, but at the expense of, you can't keep all of these players. You just can't.
Well, I'm cashing that one in because those are the takes of the day there by Eric and Riley that, it's not the right time. It's not I know a lot of people are saying that we have this window, right? That we have this window that is just going to close. If Brad keeps hitting in the drafts, this window does not close. When you get to the point of having to pay Jahmyr Gibbs and there's an Ashton Genty in the draft, well, guess what he's going to do? He's going to fill that hopper with the next running back. When Amon-Ra becomes due for his 3rd contract, well, guess what? When there is another Amon-Ra or better in the draft, he's going to fill that pipeline if he already didn't this season, which he could in this draft fill that pipeline. So the whole thing about roster roulette is when you draft, I'll try to explain it quickly. If you draft a 1st round, let's just say edge rusher this year, okay, that's your Aiden Hutchinson. If you draft a 1st round edge rusher this year, well, you've got that guy for 5 seasons. If he plays out of his mind and you do extend him after 3 years, year 4, draft 4, is when you're going to fill that pipeline again. So it's all about filling the hopper, right? Aiden, we'll call him Aiden. Aiden's playing great through his first 3 seasons. Well, now that guy that you drafted in year 4 drops into the funnel in year 4, and now he starts to take off and play great. So by the time Aiden is due for what will be his second contract, a max contract, right? You still got this guy behind him that is due for his the guy due for what will be his third contract. This guy that you dropped in the funnel is now due for his second contract. So you're probably going to ship off the guy that you've had for 7 seasons. And now the guy that you've had for 4 seasons is going to get the max deal because he's younger. Maybe he's better. And then that other guy is either traded or he's a free agent. Your goal with any player in the NFL is 2 contracts that you drafted, is 2 contracts. That's your goal. If you can get 2 contracts out of those players, you've done your job. That means you did it well, right? Whether they become quality depth rotational pieces or high-end starters, 2 contracts is the goal. Lastly here, and I've got some other news I can get to. Eric, you had this Brad Holmes news here on drafting projects. What is that all about?
Is it time for Brad Holmes to stop drafting projects? Brad Holmes has transformed the Detroit Lions roster from bottom of the league into one of the most talented of all. But all along the way, he has taken players that baffled most fans as projects. And what this whole story is about to me is it time for Brad to stop taking projects? So what Detroit Lions general manager Brad Holmes has done with the team's roster over the past 4 years has been nothing short of remarkable. In short order, Holmes has managed to take a roster that was in full-on rebuild mode into arguably the most talented roster in football. There's a reason Holmes has been named Pro Football Writers of America executive of the year in back-to-back seasons. So that's 2 seasons he's gotten it now. But no NFL general manager is above some criticism. There is no such thing as a flawless decision maker, and it's fair to wonder if Holmes' recent draft choices have been a bit questionable when it comes to one specific strategy, selecting highly developmental players in the past 2 drafts. Holmes has used the NFL draft's middle rounds to take chances on small school players with the hopes that their physical traits can eventually be developed into big time play. That includes Western Kentucky's Broderick Martin in the 3rd round, William and Mary's Corby Sorsdahl in the 5th round, and University of British Columbia's Giovanni Manu in the 4th round. As of now, none of those 3 have contributed anything meaningful through 2 years, and 1 for Manu. Of course, passing judgment on these 3 players after 1 or 2 seasons is extremely premature. Development takes time. Development for players who had poor college competition takes even longer. But there is a physiological question to be asked here. Can a team with immediate Super Bowl aspirations afford to keep developmental players on their 53-man roster when they're trying to win now? So that's something they did this year with Manu. Manu did not play a single game this year. And then if you look at Corby Sorsdahl, I don't know if he got any snaps this year whatsoever with the starters, and Broderick Martin only got a few before he got injured. And I think injury was more of the thing with Broderick Martin. Then if you look at some of his other drafts, he took injured players. He took Hendon Hooker. There's another project. He took Jamison Williams. There's another project. Because these guys, if they hadn't been injured, would not have been able to be drafted in the position they were. They would have went much higher. Hooker probably would have been a 1st round talent. JMO would have been much higher. I think instead of at 12, he probably would have been in the top 5 in the draft that JMO came out of. He was that big of a talent, but he got hurt in the national championship game and that hurt him. So now my question is today, is it time now for Brad to maybe change his draft position for 1 or 2 drafts and not take any projects? Is it time for him to just take straight up studs that he know can play, that are the Lions way? They have the grit, they have the it factor that Brad wants, and stop taking projects for a year or two and let's win a Super Bowl? Is it time to stop with the projects?
Yeah. So Riley, go ahead.
Well, I think the hard thing there is it's not like you're drafting a bunch of starters. There's not that many spots available. So you have to then take into consideration the person, as Will mentioned earlier, the intel that you have on those players, and then who's deciding if they're a project or not. Are they a project if they're a good player that's ready to play now, but they're not going to beat out a Jahmyr Gibbs? They're not bringing in a quarterback that's going to beat out Jared Goff. You have your quarterback. You've got most of your starter positions filled. So yeah, I don't know that I don't see a reason for Brad Holmes' strategy to change because it's been working. So keep doing it.
Yeah, quickly on this one, I think the project thing has been a manufactured topic by the fan base. And I think that there's a certain faction of the fan base that are saying, well, you drafted this guy, he didn't play. Mm-hmm. Well, why did you take him then if he didn't play? Why'd you give up a 5th round pick or 2 or 3 or whatever it was for Broderick Martin? He didn't play. Well, I don't hear anyone clamoring about Colby Sorsdahl. I mean, he hasn't done squat. And matter of fact, he's probably not going to be on the roster next year.
Yep.
Who was the third guy that was mentioned? Manu. He's only been on the team for a year. Who was he going to start over? Panay? Yep. Taylor Decker? It's not a project because he didn't start or didn't play. You don't sub out offensive linemen. If anything, you sub in a 6th. You don't sub out. You want your guys to play and start, right? So Manu's not so much a project as he is probably going to be one of the better picks that Brad Holmes hits on. He's just a lesser known product. But as far as Brad Holmes' strategy, I don't think that he's going to take injury-laden players this draft. I think he's going to be surgical, and I think that he's going to get in, he's going to get out, and I think he's going to execute his plan. But if he does take a project, in the 4th or 5th round, I mean, anybody after the 3rd round is a project. Let's just be real here.
Yep.
Right? We went through this the other day. Less than 15% of 3rd round players even start in the NFL or play. 15%. So anybody after the 3rd round is a project. Just because you get a few that are drafted and somehow you hit home runs on and they do become Pro Bowl, All-Pro type players does not mean that everybody's going to be that way. Riley, you got to run?
Yeah, I will. I'll dip out here and I'll keep listening on my way into work. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody, so far this morning. And I'll be listening in from here.
Yeah, we got a lot of subjects we didn't even get to this morning. So Riley will definitely have plenty to talk about as the first long segment of all 32 kind of went long. So anyway, hope you have a good day, Riley, and we'll catch you tomorrow.
Okay, see you guys tomorrow morning.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess to finish my answer on this, it's I think that Colby's probably worn out his welcome just because the time that he has been in, he hasn't been great. And with Mahogany and Manu now on the roster, I think that you're going to see Colby probably be the last offensive lineman taken, in the 53 in cut day. He'd be the last one or not at all. And that's not a miss. You took him in the 5th round. Go look at other teams. I'll look this up for tomorrow. This will be a topic for tomorrow. How many teams still have their 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round players on the roster after even one season, but let alone 2 or 3 seasons? I think that that's going to be a great topic to dive into. As far as Brad Holmes projects go, to your quote there, Eric, you're saying that J-Mo would have been a higher pick. Yeah. I think he probably would have been taken in the top 10, probably not top 5, just because where that draft was kind of loaded. You had Aiden in that draft, right? You had Thibodeau in that draft, or Walker. You had Walker in that draft. I think he probably could have been top 10. He definitely would have not have gone to the Lions where the Lions were.
I think he would have been the first receiver off the board.
There you go. I think that's the best way to put it. He probably would have been the first receiver off the board. So I don't think that these guys are necessarily projects to a degree. Broderick Martin, okay? Look, when you bring in DJ Reader and you have a Lee McNeil, and look, Reader's supposed to put at least 50, 60% of the snaps in. A Lee McNeil, I believe, is a 70%er, if my memory serves me right. You still have Josh Paschal and Levi O that needed to work in. Where is Broderick going to slot in? You know, had he not been injured in preseason, I think that he probably would have been playing. He was doing really well. He was playing well. And in third year, again, the third year is where you really want to evaluate these guys. Not every, again, third round draft picks, 15% of them play. Or 15% of them start. I can't stand the rhetoric that is thrown at Brad Holmes' head when people don't go and look up a few things like, wait a minute, before I shoot my mouth off, maybe I should go look at some real facts, you know? How many of these guys are going to start? So Brad Holmes is going to continue to do whatever he does. I trust in his process. He has not let us down yet. He really hasn't. And if you're saying that we didn't bring in an edge rusher and that's why we lost the Super Bowl, come on. That is just the furthest thing from the truth. Again, how many were we into? 7, 8 edge rushers? Yeah. I mean, after 4, on any 4-3 defense, right? You got 4 starters and 4 backups. So you're going to keep a minimum of 8 defensive linemen, 4 starters, 4 backups. So that is 1 backup at each position. Okay, where are you going to get these supposed 6th, 7th, and 8th defensive ends? Even if you keep 10 guys, which we have before, if you keep 10 on a 4-man front, that is 4 defensive tackles, 4 edge rushers, and a 5th tackle and a 5th edge rusher. Again, where's the 6th and 7th coming from? Our 6th, technically, we brought in Zadarius Smith. And it's funny where his numbers worked out in my my measurements, my roster roulette, and everything else. It's funny because he slides right in where he belongs. And I don't know who said it earlier that my roster roulette wasn't working. I mean, you go look at the players that I've called. They are the highest graded players, and that is not done by purpose. That is just where they ended up in my system. They're the highest graded players. Jared Verse was the best edge rusher. He finished with the most pressures this season. Was the best rookie. Drafted defensive player, in my opinion, out of this last draft. So I think I'm doing all right. I'll save Riley's topics for later. Is there anything else you want to get to today?
Well, there was one, and it was in my NFL news that I thought it really got to me. So the 2025 NFL Coach of the Year odds came out. All right. Now this is post Super Bowl, everybody's got a job now. Now that all 32 head coaching jobs have been filled, we can take a look at the initial odds of each coach to win the AP award for 2025. The biggest surprise is who is at number 1. So let's take a look first at where Dan Campbell, Kevin O'Connell, and Dan Quinn landed on this list. All right. We'll open her up. All right. So my list, let's see. Dan Campbell. We're going to find Dan Campbell. So Dan Campbell is way down the list at plus 2,500. He's like in 12th or 13th place. And then above him, you got DeMeco Ryans, Mike McDaniel, and Dan Quinn. So Dan Quinn's at 20 plus 2,200. And then if you keep going up, you got Jonathan Gannard at 2,200, Kyle Shanahan at 2,200, Brian Callahan from the Tennessee Titans at plus 2,000. And then you have Aaron Glenn at plus 1,800, just below Matt LaFleur. And then Mike McDonald from the Seahawks at plus 1,800. And then you get up into some of the better odds guys. You have Sean Payton, Stan Canales, Liam Cohen, first-time head coach, Pete Carroll, Jim Harbaugh, Mike Vrabel. Okay, Mike Vrabel's at plus 850. And now he's at number 2. And then all the way up at number 1 at plus 700, the guy with the absolute best odds to win NFL Coach of the Year next year, Ben Johnson with the Chicago Bears. I would put any money right now that at the end of the season, when they do the voting for AP Coach of the Year, that Dan Campbell gets way more votes than.
I certainly hope so. I don't know what I was just doing with the scenes, but I certainly hope so. If Ben Johnson gets more votes, look, he might deserve it if he has a crazy good year. You know, look, Dan Campbell should have won it 2 years in a row, or at least one of the last 2 seasons. I just feel like the AP, they need to be stripped. Like, you know, just like how politicians and sorry, this part of my political expertise fails me, but let's just say presidential terms, right? You can only serve 4 years and then a max of 8. Same thing for the AP, right? Give these guys 4 years or 2 years to serve on the AP, and then they have to get off the AP, and somebody else needs to fill in. Like, switch it up a little bit. Let's get some different players in the game to hopefully round out the monotony of people are you know, these AP guys are really just biased as all get out. You know, I think it's complete BS, honestly. What were you going to say?
Well, it's just like the MVP voting. Okay. So it's the same exact thing where last year Lamar didn't deserve it. There was guys with way better stats than him. And then this year, Josh gets it and Lamar has way better stats and doesn't get it. So it's a similar thing where, you know, I think they do kind of like a makeup year thing the following year. It's the same thing with the Pro Bowl a lot of years, and the All Pro, that they don't get it one year, they get snubbed, so they sneak them in the next year since they didn't get them in the year before, and when they actually deserved it the year before. Dan Campbell deserves Coach of the Year, and I think this year he's going to prove it by having both of his coordinators leave, and he's going to show that you can be a good head coach in this league, even losing 2 of your coordinators and 8 assistants overall. There's no other team in the NFL that lost 8 assistants this year. Assistant coaches. We're the only one, and he is going to prove that you can still do it, and you can put together a great coaching staff. And that's, you know, part of what Dan Campbell's magic is that he can put together a great coaching staff.
Yeah, he's definitely put together an amazing coaching staff this season. I mean, obviously, we need to see it come to fruition, right? Dan Campbell, look, he doesn't need an award. I think he deserves it. I think he could probably care less. The only thing he cares about is winning a Super Bowl in Detroit. That's all he cares about. You know what? Let that be his damn award, because he's going to get it. And he will be, I mean, he'll be hallowed for in the halls of Detroit, wherever you go, the state of Michigan. Like, he will be forever cemented. Like, I will go take up a sidewalk chunk and I will put something with Dan Campbell in it in front of my house. Like, that's how much I will have respect for this dude to bring a Lombardi to Detroit. We're going to put him on the sidewalk somewhere. We're going to put some bricks in buildings, whatever it is. Dan Campbell's going to be everywhere.
I guarantee he wins the Super Bowl, he will have a statue right next to Barry.
God, I hope so. Wouldn't it be it'd be a crazy big statue, right? You got a little Barry and then you're going to have big Dan Campbell.
You can make him the same size. I mean, come on.
You can't make him the same size. That would just look weird. Dan Campbell's definitely not 5'8".
Even if it's a bust or something, I mean, you know, put a Hall of Fame bust out there for him.
I think Dan Campbell should be the first thing you see right when you enter in the main entryway of the foyer of Ford Field. Like you put a big statue right there in the main entry.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool as hell.
That's what they really need to do. They need to step it up on the main entry. Maybe they open up the glasswork a little bit more, make that entire front. I mean, I know it is mostly all glass, but that way you can kind of see in, and they should put some statues right there with some of the best players ever. I think that would be incredible.
They need to do something for
Calvin.
Megatron too,
Yeah,
man. I
they
mean,
will.
they gotta do something. He's in the Ring of Honor and everything now. Do something for the guy.
He's
Come on.
Hall of Fame too, man. He should be he should be up in there. All right, so for the last segment of the day, did some work, I did some digging, and I have figured out some through contact of people that I know, others through just good old fashioned hard work. I have a list here of about 20 names. And these are going to be the hottest free agents that apparently Brad Holmes is after. A lot of these are depth guys. Couple of them could be starters. Let's get into it. All right, Brad Holmes, high interest in these free agents in 2025. Okay, so Josh Uche, you saw him, right? He's on it. So for whatever reason, last night, the thumbnail didn't switch for me prior to the live scene, but it was up last night. So I was going to talk about this, where these are some of the hottest free agents that Brad Holmes is after. And I did a little bit of digging. If you remember last year, I went into the Brad Holmes visit tracker. And if you look at all of the players that Brad Holmes has brought in to this team, a large majority, I shouldn't say all, I use absolutes a lot. It's a fault of mine. I apologize. Of most of the players that Brad Holmes has brought into this team through free agency, he has met with prior to drafts or in other free agencies, but prior to draft work, when these guys were drafted, Brad Holmes met pretty much every single player that we brought in through free agency. I had a list. I probably erased it, but I can remember a few here. Darius Fountain was one. Cam Sutton was one. Who else? Obviously, Jared Goff and others. But just to name a few, those were a few that he met with prior to coming to Detroit that he also brought to Detroit at some point. So I'm going to start with linebackers right away. Cameron Brown, Jerome Baker, Eric Wilson, Christian Roseboom, and Troy Reeder. Obviously, you can put Josh Uche in that same area, or you can call him an edge rusher. But Cameron Brown, we'll talk about him real quick. Let's see. Cameron Brown is a cornerback who played college football for Ohio State, was an undrafted free agent signed by the Chargers in 2023. He was waived by the Chargers in August of 2023. And currently, Cameron Brown is a free agent because he just signed a 1 year, $1.125 million base salary in 2024. So he's an unrestricted free agent right now. His cap number is going to be in that, $1 million, 1.1, 1.2. Been in the league since 2020 with the New York Giants. He played in, just about every game every year, but he didn't play in 2024. No starts, minimal snaps. This is just a guy that can come in and compete. He's not someone that you want to jump up and down for. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong Cameron Brown. Hold on. Hold on here. It's still pulling up the wrong one. I knew I should have prepped this before I did it on the fly.
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't see it on the sheet.
Nope. No, this is something I was going to talk about yesterday. Just didn't have a chance to. So I got a different way to do this real quick, and then I'll restart. Okay. All right, Cameron Brown. We'll start with him. Oh, great. Where did he go? Oh, yeah, I was on the right one. For some reason, Spotrac just puts these things in a mismatch order, like it has linebacker, outside linebacker, inside linebacker, and linebacker. Like, let's just call them all linebackers. All right, so Cameron Brown was the right one. I was on the right one. So he did not play in 2024, at least according to Spotrac, when you look at his statistics for the season. But he has been in the league since 2020 with the New York Giants. It looked like he signed with the Dolphins last year. He was drafted in round 6, number 183 overall in 2020, and not a whole lot of snaps, but he is a camp body. Jerome Baker is the next one, linebacker, Jerome Baker. So Jerome Baker, let me whittle this down again. Jerome Baker signed a 1-year, $7 million deal. I'm not sure how he did all that, but doesn't make any sense to me. In 2025, he is an unrestricted free agent, but when you look at his statistics over the time that he's been in the league since 2018, he has a plethora of starts. He's played in quite a few games. This last season, he played in 11 games, 9 starts, 635 snaps with the Tennessee Titans. He played in 55% of the snaps. He logged 2 sacks, 61 tackles, 34 tackles solo, and caused 1 forced fumble. Now, this guy obviously been in the league for 7 years. If the Lions are looking for someone that has playing ability, someone that obviously can, lend to the Lions defense and be credible on the field, this is one. And again, you're looking at cheap options, and all of these guys fit the mold of this is a Brad Holmes guy, right? This is somebody that he has met with in the past. He knows this player, and I think that we can all agree on one fact. Brad Holmes isn't bringing anybody into this team that he doesn't know. He's shown us every single year that's how he does his business. Eric Wilson, another linebacker. We do need linebackers in a bad way. So Eric Wilson is an inside linebacker from Green Bay, and he's been in the league since 2017. So another guy that's 8 years in the league, been around for quite a bit. Just under 50% of the snaps this last season with Green Bay, 2 sacks, 63 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception. Definitely can play the game. He's possibly not going to be back with Green Bay. Another, cheaper option for the Lions. He had a $1.4 million deal last season. His market value for this year, $1.6 million. So Eric Wilson is someone to kind of keep your eyes out for. As a lot of these rumors start flying, these are players that would actually make sense. Not so much as game changers, but depth guys, camp body, guys that can come in and compete. Again, these are guys that he has spoken to. So if you start hearing or seeing these names flying around, there should be some credibility on it. Rams former linebacker Christian Roseboom. Now he's been in the league for 4 seasons. With the Los Angeles Rams. Had a phenomenal year last year. 133 tackles. 69 solo, 64 assisted, 1 interception, 1 sack, 828 snaps. He played in just under 75% of the snaps with the Rams last year. So, again, this is another guy that maybe is going to be on the move. Between him and Eric Wilson, I mean, those are 2 of the better linebackers in the league right now. For where he belongs, as a high quality backup, someone that can spot start. Not saying that these are the guys that I would take. I'm just saying that these are the guys that have the highest potential of visiting Detroit. $1.4 million was his contract last season. So again, if you bring in a guy like this for $2 million and he produced that much, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you, add him to your squad? How about Troy Reeder? So Troy Reeder, let me bring his info here. All right, so Troy Reeder last season, again with the Rams. He is also an unrestricted free agent. He played in 93% of the snaps, had 64 tackles, 26 were solo. He only played in 6 games, though. And out of those 6 games that he started, 93.9% of the snaps. So I something tells me that he was injured last season. And that is why he didn't continue to play. Let me take a look. Again, I should have probably done all this beforehand. And that's a lie. No injuries last year. So let me take a look. That's a lie. He was out for week 8. So the Rams ruled out Troy Reeder. He had a hamstring injury last year. For some reason, it's not registering on the injury tracker that I use. But he was out week 8 with a hamstring injury. So we know how hamstrings are. We've had a few of our own players that have been dealing with that this last season. It just kept them out the majority of the season. Next up, defensive tackle. Or do you have any opinions here on any of those 5 linebackers? Cameron Brown, Jerome Baker, Eric Wilson, Christian Roseboom, or Troy Reeder? I know you really haven't had any time to do research.
No, but you would think that the kid from the Rams would have some type of history with Brad Holmes.
Oh, no, he does.
Yeah.
I can 100% tell everyone all of these players have met with Brad Holmes. All of them. Not this season, but prior to them becoming an NFL player, prior to the draft, he met every single one of these players. He knows these guys. And that's what I'm saying. So when you look at all of, or the majority of the players that have been brought in free agency for the Detroit Lions, they've all, or a large majority of, have met with Brad Holmes prior to the draft process. Defensive tackle, first one up, Raequan Williams. Interesting name. I for some reason, that name just rattles around in my brain. But Raequan Williams, why is he not showing up here? Uh-oh. Is he not supposed to be on this list? Uh-oh. Oh, I should probably change this to defensive tackle. That would help. We'll try this again. Raequan Williams. Raequan Williams. I love that name, Raequan. All right, Raequan Williams, defensive tackle, 28 years old, formerly with the Panthers. Now, he was undrafted, went to Philly in 2020 out of Michigan State. What a great school Michigan State is, man. I'm just kidding. I'm not even going to go there today. Michigan State's in trouble. So 2020, 2021, played with Philly. Obviously, doesn't have much after that. Just doesn't, at least according to Spotrac, doesn't have much for stats. I'm not in on Raequan, but again, this is just a name that I'm throwing out there that he has met with. This guy popped up on my radar last year, and his name is Leki Fotu. I'm not sure what he did this last season, but we're going to find out right now together. Leki Fotu, defensive tackle, 26 and a half years old, New York Jet, drafted round 4, 114 overall in 2020. His statistics tell me that he played 4 seasons with Arizona Cardinals, and then he must have been moved at the trade deadline to the New York Jets in 2024, where he logged 2 games, 1 start, played 46 snaps. He had 1 tackle, 2 tackles assisted with the Jets, but for Arizona, no, I'm sorry. He played 4 seasons with Arizona, and then he moved to the Jets in 2024. He did not play a whole lot. Let's just put it that way. 2 games, 1 snap. He must have been injured last year. Again, that's a speculation. Let's take a look. Leki Fotu. So he was placed on IR with a knee injury October 31st. And his knee injury means that he was placed on injured reserve for 2 times last year. But this last time was due to a knee injury. He missed the first 5 games of the regular season with a hamstring, go figure. But he was able to suit up for weeks 6 and 7, logged 3 tackles, and then he was placed on IR with a knee injury. So obviously the jury is out on whether or not this guy is going to be able to come back and play at a high level this year. He was eligible to come back off of IR in week 17. No, I'm sorry. He was designated for return from IR December 18th, and he did not come off of IR for the rest of the season. So Leki Fotu, he is a He is every time I move off this screen, it resets, and I wish it wouldn't do that. Now I got to go back and find it again. Oh, goodness. All right, so Lucky Fotu is a unrestricted free agent. Last year signed a deal for $2.5 million. So again, another cheaper option for the Lions to maybe take a flyer on if Brad Holmes does what Brad Holmes does with injured players. That would be one. How about Greg Gaines? Greg Gaines, unrestricted free agent out of Tampa Bay, $3.5 million contract last season. He will be 28, very close to being 28 when the season starts. Had a cap hit of 1.5 last year. And when we take a quick look at his statistics, looks like he was drafted by the Rams, played with the Rams through 2022, moved on to Tampa Bay. He's a high rotational player, a low rotational player, about 35% of the snaps. Played in 15 games last season with 3 starts, 7 tackles, 1 sack. I mean, not crazy stats, but again, a guy that was a former round 4, 134 overall, cheap option, 6 years experience. Could be somebody that Brad takes a flyer on here in 2025. Sebastian Joseph is up next for defensive tackle. And look, we know that we need a defensive tackle. I mean, Eric, we know this, right? I mean, look, Ali McNeil's hurt. DJ Reader, we don't know what the overall plan is. Are the Lions really going to move off of him this year? I think that they set up the contract, or the contract was kind of set up in that fashion, that they would have a nice out if they needed to. Do you really think that the Lions are going to go after another high free agent, or is it more draft and low free agent?
I don't know. This is the one that's tricky. They have to address this, and I think they're going to have to bring in somebody. They have to bring in someone through free agency and draft one.
Yeah, so let's talk about this gentleman for a minute. Sebastian Joseph, market value, $4.5 million. Okay, not bad as far as money-wise. Now, he started his career, again, with the Rams. All these guys playing with the Rams. First 4 years, then he went to the Chargers, then he went for the 49ers, and then he went to the Titans last year. 17 games all season. He played about half the snaps. Had 3 sacks, 44 tackles on the year. I mean, exactly what DJ Reader did. 3 sacks, didn't have a bad year, but he's also 1/3 of the price of a DJ Reader. So he's also going to be 30 years old when the season starts. Now, he is a round 6 pick, 195 overall, came out of Rutgers. He has 7 years of experience. I mean, he's still in the late prime of his career, right? I think between age 26 and 30 is what you're probably going to consider the prime of any player, depending on when they came out of college. But I think between 26, 27, and 30 is about it. So he's at the tail end of his prime. Again, somebody that Brad knows. Is he going to come into Detroit and work this camp this year? Now, this one is not a surprise. And matter of fact, he played for us last season. And his name is Jonah Williams. He is an unrestricted free agent. Now, Jonah came in at a time when the Lions were desperate, and they took 3 players off of practice squads. Jonah ended up being one of them. Matter of fact, the first game that he got in, I thought he played pretty damn good. I think he logged a sack in that first game, if memory serves me correct. Jonah could be back. I think that this is a guy that the Lions want back. Again, he has history. There's no surprise here that Brad brings in guys that he knows. He's something that he's done every year. Jonah is one of them. Let me find his info here. Go ahead. You're going to say something?
I'm looking at his PFF grades.
I don't think his PFF grades were that great, were they?
No, really bad. So his overall grade was a 37.7. Pass rush was a 64.2, and his run defense was a 32.9.
So pass rush grade wasn't bad.
No.
But you know what? I don't know what his grades were prior to joining the Lions. I don't think he played a whole lot. That's why he was on the practice squad. Look, he got thrown into a shit sandwich kind of a situation, right? I mean, yeah, on a defense that is decimated. you're a rookie in this defense. It's not going to be great. But when you have time to learn and time to play, especially in training camp, I think that Jonah Williams is only going to escalate as far as his ability on the field. I don't know why anyone would think differently. He signed a $1.05 million contract to join the Lions last year. He got in 9 games. He had 1 start, 99 snaps. So he only played in 12% of the snaps all season. He did not register a sack, so I was wrong there. He ended up with 1 tackle, solo, 2 tackles overall, in 12% of the snaps. I mean, not even 100 snaps for the Lions. I don't think that we could give any credit to the PFF grade on 100 snaps. I think you have to have at least 300 before you can even say, okay, I think we understand who this guy is, which is about 6 games worth of snaps. It kind of gives you an idea of who he is. I think Jonah has a high likelihood, more than lower likelihood, of coming back here in 2025.
And he did get a sack, but it was taken away by penalty.
That's okay. So he did. All right. So I did remember correctly, but
yeah.
All right. This next one, this is actually a pretty decent name here. We're going to switch over to corner.
Okay.
All right. Adoree Jackson. Now, Adoree Jackson, 8 years experience. He'll be about 29 and a half years old when the season starts. Former first-round pick, number 18th overall with the Tennessee Titans. Played with the Titans for 4 seasons and the Giants for 4 seasons. So he's entering his 3rd contract. Unrestricted free agent. Obviously, what is his market value? That's the biggest question. What is his market value going to be in 2025? I haven't really been able to find a good market value, but I'll say this. He earned a 1.5 base with the Giants last year. I would expect that that's probably going to be 1.75 to 2 million this year. If it's a 1-year prove it deal, maybe the Lions sweeten it just a little bit and try to pull him in on a 2-year deal. Couple $1,000,000, I'm sure a lot of fans would love to have somebody other than Kindle Vildor. So I'm not gonna say that this isn't an option. It is an option. Simply because he's on Brad's radar.
Yeah, he has some much better grades than good old Kindle Vildor had. His overall grade is a 69, so he's right up there just below the really good players. But his run defense was 85.8, which is really, really good. And then his coverage grade was 64.5.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad. No, you hit the nail on the head there with the run defense. I mean, what do we know about our corners? Every time we brought in a corner, their run defense grade has always been the highest PFF grade. Always. Yep. So when you look at what we do and do well or want to do well, it is stop the run. So Adoree Jackson fits that mold. And I'm not looking at these guys from a size or weight or anything else. Next guy here is David Long from the Colts. And he's an unrestricted free agent this year. Last season, he signed a 1.125 million base. He'll be 27 this year. So he'll be entering his 7th season. Started his first 4 with none other than the Los Angeles Rams. You see the theme here? All former Rams players. A lot of these guys drafted by the Rams when Brad Holmes was involved in that scouting department. Former college Michigan. All of you Michigan fans want this guy on the squad. I already know it already. David Long. Former round 3 pickup, number 79 overall in 2019. Let's look at his stats. So with Indianapolis last year, he played in 13 games, no start. So he's a rotational player. And he logged 1% of the snaps. He had 9 snaps on the whole season.
Oh.
Prior to that, he had 190 snaps with Green Bay. The year before, he averaged about 290 snaps per season before that. So he is purely a rotational depth piece. I heard the O's and the oohs and the ahs. That could only mean his grades aren't great.
Oh, worse than Kindle Vildor. Overall grade 29.9.
Is that's for 24?
Yeah.
Yeah, he only played in 9 snaps. What about 23?
Let's see. We can go back.
Should be a drop-down menu there.
Yep, I got it. What the hell? Unlock with PFF Plus.
Yeah, you've got my sign in, yeah?
I thought I did. I don't know why this isn't.
I'm not going to say it over the air, but you should have it.
Yeah, it's not letting me. I couldn't tell you what your login was.
I'll send it to you right now.
All right.
See, I thought that there was a way to add team members to this stuff, but I guess not. There you go. All right, so next I'm going to move on to Tremont Smith. We'll come back to David Long in just a moment. So Tremont Smith, again, let's look at his stats. He will be 28 and a half, so he'll be pretty close to 29 as the season starts. Now, he was not drafted by the Rams. He started his career off with KC, round 6, number 196 overall out of Central Arkansas. He's kind of moved around the league a little bit. He went KC, Green Bay, Indianapolis, 2 seasons with Houston, and the last 2 seasons with Denver. Now, last year, he only logged 16 snaps. So his grades for 24 and 23 are not going to be great. We would need to look at 22 and 21 to see what he's done in his career. He's only logged a couple of interceptions, but again, we're looking at a guy that is just a depth piece. Again, I'm not for or against a lot of these players. It's more so the conversation of keep your eyes on the lookout for some of these players as these are Brad Holmes guys. What'd you find out on David Long?
On David Long. So let's look at his season stats from 2023. He had 16 tackles and 13 receptions allowed. Okay, so I need to get up here. All right, so his overall grade was 65.7, which is not too bad. His run defense grade was 40.7, and his coverage grade was 75.6, which is pretty darn good.
See, I guess I'm more high on David Long now that we know that. Tremont Smith, not so great. 61.5 run defense grade, 36.9 coverage, 41.8 overall. Now, again, we don't use PFF as the end-all, be-all. It is a guide. It is a guide to whether or not you even want to go look at the tape, in my opinion. But that's it for corners. Now we'll move over to safety. This is a I hate to say it's a need this year, but it kind of is, especially when we don't know what we don't know about Kirby and what's going to be the plan here. Are we going to see a team that is going to pay 2 top-tier safeties over the next 2 seasons? Possibly. I just don't see Brad Holmes doing it. So Nick Scott, safety, formerly of the Carolina Panthers. Now, last year he made 1.125, which is just a veteran base minimum for his time of service in the NFL. Now, if we look at his market value for the season, it is $2.3 million. And his statistics for last year, he played in 10 games, had 4 starts, logged 325 snaps, 41.7% of the snaps overall, 12 tackles assisted, 26 overall. Do you have anything on Nick Scott?
Yeah, so his overall grade was a 52.6. His pass rush grade was 39.7. His run defense was 48.1, and his coverage grade was 56.7.
So not great, but again, a low rotational player. These guys are not going to be starters at $2.5 million. I'd probably be a hard pass. But here's the other name that popped out to me. And this is a guy that I spoke about last year. Now, he had a bad season that I can remember from last year. Was not great. I think he was sidelined with some injury. And that is Jordan Fuller. Now, Jordan Fuller just popped up the other day. He was released or going to be released and is somebody that also met with Brad Holmes. So take a look at his injury history first. Now, last injury known on him was a right shoulder injury. But prior to that, in 2022, he had a pedal foot fracture, grade 1. In 2020, he had a cervical neck stinger, grade 1. And then also in 2020, he had a shoulder injury, grade 1. Now, That's pretty good, right? He hasn't really been injured since 2022. He's a very low risk on the scale here by the injury. By the injury site that I follow. So last year, the Panthers get safety Jordan Fuller and edge DJ Wonham. They got him back from injuries for the game. What was that, against the Giants? So they were active as of November 10th. And wow, they had Charles Harris on their squad last year. Interesting.
There's a name, you know.
Now, he was a healthy scratch, though, in December. So December 22, the Panthers made safety Jordan Fuller a healthy scratch against the Cardinals. I mean, obviously, the Panthers weren't going to win any more games. And putting him as a healthy scratch, clearly that was probably a move to say, look, we're probably walking away from you. But at 6'2", 203 pounds, 5 years of experience, out of Ohio State, former sixth-round pick, Jordan Fuller brings a little bit of pizzazz to his game. And I'm not saying that he's going to come in and take a job from anybody, but to have him as our, backup safety, would you rather have an Efetu Melifonwu coming back, who clearly couldn't make his way back to the football field last year, or do you take a roller here on Jordan Fuller? His market value right now is at $5 million a season. I think that Iffy's probably going to end up in that $3.5 million range. We know that Kirby is going to be in the 18 million range. Brian Branch is still on a rookie contract. Is $5 million too much to pay? Probably. Especially for a guy that maybe isn't a game changer, but I think he can be. Especially if he's used in the right, situation. But obviously it's somebody that is going to, be riding the pine more so or less until we get into, 5 and 6 DB sets where we're using more safeties than we are corners. The next guy, safety, Jaylinn Hawkins. That is Jayli in 2 N's. Hawkins. Now, last year he was with the New England Patriots, where he played all 17 games. He had 7 starts, 612 snaps, just under 55% of the total snaps on the season. 43 tackles, no sacks, no interceptions, no fumbles recovered. Prior to that, he was with the Chargers. We played in 16 games with 3 starts. And he started off his career with the Atlanta Falcons. He was drafted in round 4. He's played in quite a bit of games over his career. It looks like he's missed about 15% of the games over the life of his career. As far as contract value, right now there's no value placed on him, but just based on what he earned last year, which was a vet minimum base, yeah, he's probably in that $2 million range. What is this PFF telling us?
For this year, his grades were 60.1 overall. His pass rush was 47. Run defense was 69 and coverage grade was 56. So he's an overall of 60 is not bad at all, and 31 solo tackles. And what did he have? Yeah, 31 solo tackles and 13 receptions allowed.
So let's compare Iffy for just a second. Now, I don't think we can really do that for last season, as he didn't log a ton of snaps last year. Total snaps on the year for Iffy last year was 136. He also graded out in the green. So he was a low to mid 60s all the way across the board. Coverage, overall, run defense, and pass rush, he was like 63 to 66. That's not bad, but we're talking 136 snaps. How does Jaylinn Hawkins compare to that?
A little less.
A little less. All right, so let's look at 23. Now, Iffy, the season before, craziness, played in 136 snaps. Nope, that's the wrong one. Played in 400 snaps the year before. Now, get this. Iffy was damn near elite, according to PFF. 85.6 overall, 92 pass rush grade, 67.2 run defense grade, and 80.9 in coverage. I have no idea how, because our pass defense was garbage. I don't know how some of these players have such elite grades in such a poor defense. But he also had
2 interceptions as well.
Yeah, he was the 14th ranked safety out of 2023 for coverage grade. He was the 8th ranked safety overall out of the 2023 season. So when we go through some of this and we look at if he is on the field, the question is, if he going to play or not, right? Is if he going to make it back?
Does he have a bent fingernail today?
Exactly. So I would love to see Iffy back. And I think that when you look at the problem with Kirby, potential problem with contract, bringing Iffy back makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Financially, it makes a ton of sense. And I don't think that he's going to be a guy that can say, well, I want a big contract. I just don't think he's that guy. He hasn't played enough.
Do you think that Aaron Glenn knows what Kirby is and is like, hey, let's offer this dude $5 million?
Mm.
The Lions aren't going to offer him $5 million. They got to deal with the Kirby issue. Let's get Melifonwu from him.
See, and I think if they let Kirby walk, if the Lions, I don't mean walk, but if they trade Kirby, then if he's going to be signed before that. So if we see if he gets signed, I think that we could start looking to what's about to happen with Kirby. It could be a direct correlation. Now, I don't see a market value for Ifeatu. I don't know why. I mean, I'm signed into the premium account and it's not giving me a market value. Maybe they just haven't figured it out yet. But I would say he's going to be in that $3.5 million range, at least for one season. He might get $5 million for one. He might. But at the end of the day, that's really all we have left other than John Johnson. So John Johnson is the last safety that Brad Holmes met with during his time in LA. Now, John Johnson was a former Ram. He was drafted round 3, number 91 overall. What a name, John Johnson. I'm not even going to say it. He's been in the league since 2017. He's got 8 years of experience.
Holy.
He's logged quite a few snaps. Last year, he only played in 2 games, though, and 59 snaps. So that wholly is probably going to mean that his grades are terrible for 24. Look at 23.
No, his grade was excellent for 24.
59 snaps, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I got to look at 23. And 22, he played every game, every snap. So 22 and 23 is going to tell me more about who he is before I watch tape.
Much different in 23 and 22. 24, he had a 90.7 overall.
What year are you looking at?
At 2024.
Yep.
For Johnson. And he had 5 solo tackles and an interception, and only allowed 4 receptions. So his grades were fantastic. 90.7 overall, run defense 68, and pass coverage was 88.5.
Wow.
How they'll add up to 90.7, I don't know. But then when you look at 2023, his grades dropped way down by 40 points on each of them. So you're looking at 55.8, 53, 50, and 56. So,
well, let's remember though, 24, he only had 59 snaps. So when you have less than 300, your numbers are going to be either extremely high or extremely low. I don't think they ride in the middle ever. It could be that maybe the player that he was in 24, maybe he figured a few things out and was playing at a better clip at the time that he was able to get in. But in 23, he logged about half the snaps.
Yep.
He's got an average grade. He's towards the bottom of the NFL when it comes to safeties. But in 2022, where he logged just about every snap, he's a mid-tier safety. He's a 62 overall, 66 in run grade, or I'm sorry, coverage grade, 62 in pass grade, 56 in run. But then again, we have to look at the defense that he was on, right? The entire team was decimated after they won their Super Bowl. So I think that this is a guy that if Brad trusts him and he can be somewhere between 22 and 24 as far as, his play on the field, how much is it going to cost? Right. I think that's the question. How much is it going to cost? Well, last year he only signed a vet minimum deal. So maybe we get him in for a year or two at vet minimum or just a little bit above. We need depth. We need clearly we've seen it this year. The DB room was the last room to suffer injuries. This year we can't suffer any injuries.
Yeah.
All right, so I got 2 final names for you guys. Now this guy is either Jake or Jacob Martin. Jake or Jacob. Just depends on how you refer to him and how he's going to pull up. So he's not pulling up that way as Jacob. And Jake Martin, here we go. Should be an edge player, Eric. Should be an edge. And let me make sure I got the right guy.
Jacob Martin played with the Bears.
That's what I'm thinking here.
And he's an edge.
Yep. All right. So
29 years old.
Yep. 29 years old, 7 years of experience, round 6, 186 overall. He started his career off in Seattle. Then he bounced to Houston after 1 year for 3 years. Then he went to Denver, then Indianapolis, and then Chicago. Now in Chicago, he logged 31% of the snaps. He had 3 sacks on 200 snaps. It's pretty solid. He had 2 snaps the year before in 23 on only 191 snaps. In 2022, in 261 snaps, he had 3 sacks. In 2021, he played almost 700 snaps and he had 4 sacks. What I see with this is the more snaps you give him, the more times he gets into the backfield. If he's logging a sack every 100 snaps and you play 1,000 snaps in a season, that's 10 sacks. If the pattern continues to follow the trend. But the question is, in Chicago, he only played in a third of the snaps. He played in 11 games, no starts. I'm not sure on his injury history. I'll look up the injury history. What does his grades look like?
Well, his overall grade is a 63.5. His pass rush grade is pretty good at 67. And then his run defense is 54.9. So he needs to work on his run defense a little bit. But in a system like Detroit, it's the perfect system for people to learn how to work against the run and have help with other people against the run.
Okay, so I'm not sure if I have the right player profile up. So I'm going to pass on his injury history for right now. His market value right now is $2.2 million. And as an edge player, if we're looking for depth, I don't think this is the answer. I would much rather bring back Davenport before I bring a guy like this in. Even if you were to double up his 2.2 and call it 4 or $5 million for Davenport in 2025, if somehow you can lure him back for $5 million a year, even $6 million a year, I would do it. But the next guy, the guy that everyone's been wanting to talk about, is Josh Uche. So let me go with 5 things to know about Josh Uche real quick. Number 1, Josh Uche has racked up 106 pressures and 16.5 sacks over the last 3 seasons. So if you're looking for a guy that is going to dominate, this isn't it. I'm sorry, 106 pressures, an average of 33 a year, 34 a year, and an average of about 5.5 sacks a season. That's not necessarily dominating, but he's 26 years old. He's been very productive in his young career with 106 pressures. I mean, it's productive, right? 23 quarterback hits. That's exciting. 16.5 sacks. That's commendable. I think that's a good, baseline entry, for somebody to make their way onto this Lions linebacker room or as an edge, depending on how you're going to play him. But for context, his 13 pressures is now ranking 4th on the Chiefs last season. And looking at last year, his 37 pressures in the year before in 23 ranked him 4th on the team behind only Chris Jones, who had 75, and Karlaftis, who had 64, and then defensive end Mike Dana, who had 41. Number 2 thing to know about Josh Uche is that when he plays, he wins. He owns a pass rush win rate of 17.2%. Now, he has 2 sacks in last year at this time of this article. This was October 28 of 2024. He had 2 sacks at that time. And That was in seven games, but the traditional statistics don't tell the full story. In fact, with a 17.2% pass rush win rate, that ranked 14th in the NFL among edge rushers with 90-plus pass rushing snaps at that time. So he immediately led all of the Chiefs' edge rushers in that category, and overall, only Chris Jones had a higher win rate than Uche while he was in Kansas City. Number 3, his top statistical season was 2022. At 6'1", 240 pounds, Uche was among the most productive pass rushers in the NFL during the 2022 campaign. He piled up 56 pressures, which was 20th in the NFL, 11.5 sacks, which is crazy, which was 12th in the NFL that year, tailing all of those sacks over the course of the Patriots' final 10 games of the season. If I remember correctly, I think the Patriots ran a 3-4 in 2022, which would have put him as an off-ball outside linebacker, which may be what he does better. But if he can play anywhere between, the 5 and the 9, that would put him into a position to succeed in Detroit. You could put him on the outside as an off-ball linebacker and just send him into attack. Number 4, he originally entered the NFL as a second-round pick in 2020. He was the number 60 overall pick in that draft, making him the number 28 pick of the second round. He was the 7th edge rusher selected that year. Prior to the draft, he was considered the number 5 edge rusher available by Athletic's Dane Brugler. Dane Brugler had this to say. He says, Uche is a speedy, loose-hipped athlete with functional length to rush the passer and the range to chase down ball carriers versus the run. Overall, Uche will require a patient coaching staff as he learns to be a more polished and instinctive player. But his twitched-up athleticism and edge speed are difference-making traits, projecting as an NFL nickel rusher and eventual starter. Number 5, he played for none other than University of Michigan. So all of you U of M fans clearly want this. That's why I keep seeing Uche's name, is because we have a lot of U of M fans that watch the channel, and they want every Michigan player to be on the Detroit Lions. Now, he appeared in 26 games as a rotational player during his first three seasons as a Wolverine, and then before playing half of Michigan's snaps as a senior in 2019. He had 20.5 tackles for loss and 16.5 sacks during his career in Ann Arbor, and he earned Michigan's Defensive Player of the Year, which is obviously voted on by his teammates. So Uche has been an up-and-down player. He had his best season in 22. I do like his speed. I like his agility. I just need to know more about Uche as a potential outside linebacker in our scheme, because I think at 6'1", 240, you are not an edge player in our scheme at all. It just doesn't work. Not in a 4-3 defense. So he would have to come in as an off-ball linebacker in our scheme. And what does his coverage stats look like? Does he even have any coverage stats to speak of?
Oh, let's see.
I don't see any.
No.
Yeah. So that's my worry there for Josh Uche, is that, it's 6'3", 240, not 6'1". Or at least he's 6'3" in PFF's thing, but I thought he was 6'1" listed somewhere else.
So Uche is the player that I got faked out on.
Oh, last year.
Yeah, so I'm sitting in the stadium and everybody's texting me, "Oh, Josh Uche to the Lions." So I reposted it, and of course it didn't happen. It was all fake. Because I didn't go make sure. I didn't go to Twitter and look at Adam Schefter or Ian. I didn't make sure. I didn't double check. So that one got me.
It happens. It happens. So that's the list. That's about 20 players that Brad Holmes has taken a hard look at in his past. Those are about 20 players that are on the free agency list this season. How many of them make their way to Detroit? That's going to be the biggest question. Josh Uche, does he have a shot? Maybe. I just need to know what he can do in coverage, because that is our biggest problem, is coverage at the linebacker position. I can see where, Alex Anzalone is probably going to take over, the Sam position this season. Campbell will be in the center. We need somebody on the other side, and we need somebody that can cover. We need somebody that can stop the run. We need someone that can get sideline to sideline if needed. Josh Uche can probably do all of those things. I just don't know his coverage ability, but I do believe that he has the speed to do it. It's just, does he have the intelligence to do it? That's the biggest question. So, anything else?
No, I think that's it.
All right. We went an extra hour and 15 minutes today. Appreciate everybody hanging out. We got a lot. We got so much we didn't even talk about, but 2 long segments today really did it in. So
yeah, I was going to tell you, Will, tomorrow we could do one of my takes from the other day and look at all the tag people for all 32 teams.
Tag people, all the guys that were tagged?
No, all the tag candidates. There's one tag candidate for each of the 32 teams. We could do something similar to what we did today.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you write it up and send it over and let's take a look at it.
It's in the show sheet
from today,
from a couple days ago.
Oh yeah, I probably won't see it. Just rewrite it.
Okay.
Just rewrite it. Yeah, Ojulari. So I see you guys mentioning Ojulari in the chat a lot now. I mean, I jumped on Ojulari early in trade deadline last year. Ojulari is still on my list. I think he does fit. I think he fits very well. And I don't think his contract is going to be too scary. But remember, we need to find a fit that absolutely fits what we're going to do this season. I'll have to look at Ojulari again. And I did pretty hard. I did a whole sermon on the guy. But where is he going to fit? You know, just like Josh Uche. Is he off ball? Is he linebacker? Is he edge? Like where is he really going to fit that's going to make the most sense? Either way, I'm getting more and more excited about the draft. Mock 1 is done. Mock 2, which is going to be the first 3 rounds, will be coming up probably this week. I should have it finished by then. Last thing I'm going to show everybody here. That's those of you that didn't join last night. Let me show you what I showed everybody, then we'll bounce off. Where is it? Where is it? Window capture. There we go.
Yeah, you showed me that last year, and I couldn't believe the amount of work you put into that.
Yeah, this is this year's.
Oh man.
Yeah, this is this year's. So this is how crazy I am. This is how much work I put in so that we can have good conversations on this channel. And when I say I know a player, just like when Brad Holmes says he knows a player, this is why. So if you look, last year I said Jared Verse was the number 1. Here he is right here. Okay? This is Jared Verse. When you look at his score on my sheet, all the way to the right was a 36. That's a pretty high score. That's out of a possible 50. He was a 36 out of 50. Last year, there was hardly any players that were mocked above a 40 on my sheet. Myles Garrett is a 44 on my sheet. Clearly, when you look at some of the best players in the league, these are it. J.J. Watt to Matthew Judon. These are the best edge rushers in the league. Now, I'm going to do this for every position. And it helps me to identify all of their measurements, plus or minus, from rare, great, average, below average, or a concerning level. My scoring method by color, how many points they get by color, and then their agility. They're 40, they're 10 split, they're vertical, they're broad, they're bench. Those are the only ones that really matter to me. You could say that 3-cone is another one that is pretty important. But my edge rusher, perfect edge rusher, is a score of a 39. Jared Verse was a 36, so I'm not that far off. Aiden Hutchinson was a 33. So it's not that far off. A 39 is at the top of the scale. So anyone that was even close to a 39, J.J. Watt, Myles Garrett was above. Cameron Jordan.
Is Cameron Jordan a free agent this year?
He might be. And that's it. So only 3 players are even close. Now, all of these numbers and all of these scores and all these measurables, this is for elite players only. This is not just for your average NFL player. All right. this is for the guys that end up being elite. Why I'm doing this is when I go in and mock, here, let me put that back up. When I go in and look at, these guys, okay, so these are the edge rushers currently in the draft. Right? I have all of their measurements already. When I go in and look at guys like Donovan Ezra-Kyle, who I've been high on this entire time, I didn't have his measurements when I was already high on him from tape. He's got an elite wingspan score, his APE score. So I was talking about the APE index last night. I've never heard anybody else talk about it but me. And it matters. It matters big time. So when you look at guys like Landon Jackson, he's in the elite range. This guy, Ja Joyner, he's in the elite range. AJ Obin and Oluwafemi Oladeo, who I really liked I think it was the Shrine Bowl.
There's a name. Holy crap.
Josiah Stewart, another one out of Michigan, in the elite range for wingspan. Princely, really liked Princely really liked him as well. But even David Walker out of Central Arkansas, that dude's grades are insane. And really like what he's doing. So for every one of these, we got linebackers in here, corners, safeties, quarterbacks, O-line. We're doing them all. So you can see I've got a lot of work to do. But it's this sheet that is going to help paint the picture. Where are these new draftees going to fit into my elite scale? And so that tells me, all right, out of 50 points, we know for edge rushers, if you're a 36 and up, you're pretty damn elite. You're pretty damn elite. So if we find somebody in the draft that is even close to those mocks of these measurables, well, those are going to be the guys that I'm going to trend towards because they're already hitting the areas that you can't teach. You can't teach height. You can't teach speed. You can always add or reduce weight. You can't teach hand or arm length. You definitely can't teach wingspan. So out of all of those measurables, how do they stack up with each other? What do they really mean? Well, I'm going to compare them to the best defensive tackles, to the best corners, to the best safeties. And then we're going to find an average. And then I'm going to create my own perfect soldier, if you will, and how they fit. So hopefully you guys appreciate all of the work that I put in, but it wouldn't be without my trusty co-host here, Eric, and Riley. I mean, Riley's working his way in, man. He really wants to do this at a high level, and he's putting a lot of work in to learn. And my goal is hopefully it's going to be Eric and Riley on the show without me some days so that I can take a break. And then there's going to be days that'll be just me and Riley when Eric's got to do his stuff. So we're trying to get everybody up to snuff here, ship shape, ready to go for the season. Final 30 to you. Let's roll.
Yeah. Hey, we got a lot of really cool stuff coming up. I mean, the combine's coming up here in just another 10 days or so. So look for some really cool stuff coming up. This is the slow season, but there is no such thing as a slow season when it comes to the NFL. There is something Detroit Lions every single day, 365.
Yeah, we got a lot of work ahead of us too here. I don't know how I'm going to get all this in before the combine, but the combine is where all of the rest of the measurements are going to come out. And then I can put the rest of the work together before the draft. So this is always a work in progress. It does two things. It does roster roulette, which I haven't shown anybody that. And then it does my elite scale. This is the scale that would help me as a scout figure out who I need to look at the most. And that starts with elite measurables, elite agility, and then tape. Blend it together. We'll figure out who's going to be the best athlete. And so every year I'm going to put out a set of players. Starting this year, I'm going to put out a set of players that I predict to be the top at their position, but they have to play the whole season, right? They can't be injured. If I pick them and then they're injured, that's not a bust. That's not a fail. They got injured. So they have to play. So that means I'm going to put out 3 players for each position that I feel one of those 3 are going to be the best at their position. If not, 2 or 3 of those 3 are going to be at the best of their position. And let's see how close I get, because that means if I were drafting as a GM, and I see these 3 players, right? These 3. What if I take one now and one later in the draft? Well, then I've got even better odds that one of those players is going to turn out to be a dog in the NFL. So instead of just drafting one player in a draft at one position, maybe you want to draft two like Brad Holmes does, like he does, doubles down. We might see that more often from Brad where he's going to double down. And he probably did that for a reason. Well, I know he did it for a reason. But anyway, we'll see you guys tomorrow morning. May or may not be back tonight. At least I got to get some videos out. I know I keep saying that, but seems like after the show, this whole dizzy crap starts and I got to reset my day. So you guys have a wonderful day. Go Lions. Go Rocked On Detroit Lions. We'll see you guys all in the next one. Bye-bye.
Rocked on Detroit Lions will